Welcome back to European Fight Night Rising. I am Boop here with the extravagant Excoundrel. Didn't mess it up that time, my friend. How you doing?
You didn't. I'm good. I was hoping for maybe one extra E alliteration there, but you know what? I'm gonna let it slide, Boop, because it's you. I'm gonna let it slide. Yeah, honestly, I know. I'm really excited. I'm actually really excited for the main reason is that we're on 10.14. I think everyone was very well aware of the collective pro mixed feelings about 10.13. Let's see how 10.14 pans out. This is going to be a good indication about what the high level players in Europe think the meta is. I wouldn't be surprised to see quite a bit of Darkstar in there, but nonetheless, I'm more excited to get involved in this rather than just Jinx top 3 every game, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we did the math, like 60 to 70% of every lobby last week had a top 4 Jinx participation there. So it was pretty ridiculous how common we saw that Jinx. But before we get any deeper into the meta, because I know that's what everyone wants to hear us talk about right now, we got to do a little bit of housekeeping. First off, we want to say thank you to Juked.gg for letting us know exactly where to tune in to every one of these streams and also when the next Giant Slayer tournament is going to be. So thank you so much. But next, we're also going to have to talk about which players are going to be participating today. And, you know, Excoundrel and I were talking about this lobby in particular because there's some good players on tap for today. So we've got Mr. Stylet, Kezman, Fluffy, Leduc, Magarky, YouBetterKnowMe, our defending champion, adrehhh, and Onyxlace. Those last 3 were our top 3 from last week, and it was pretty crazy, Excoundrel, because YouBetterKnowMe ended up winning the whole thing while also getting an 8th place in the second lobby of the day. So again, no matter what happens on these first 2 lobbies, you could maybe get into some good momentum and get you back here as the champion. We're also playing for a little bit of money. We've got a couple $100 for number 1, going down to that top 4, finishing all in the money. But now that we've gotten through all of that, we finally get to talk about that meta, Excoundrel. You were mentioning Darkstars. I am wearing this shirt for, I think, the 3rd or 4th time because we're going to see a lot of purple, right? We're going to see those Darkstars and a couple maybe different variations. What is your expectation for these Darkstars today?
Yeah, I think we're going to see 4 Darkstar with the Vanguard frontline, which is the Mordekaiser Wukong version when you add in Thresh, or the more common and probably better version, the 4 Darkstar Protectors, because Jarvan is ridiculously broken. Like, Jarvan is insane right now. So you just run him alongside some other Protectors. You add Celestial in really easily. And yeah, I'm expecting the Darkstar Protector variant to be pretty popular. I actually want to reflect back on some of those names and kind of look back at the stories of those players from last week as well. YouBetterKnowMe came into that tournament having dropped about 600 LP. He came into that tournament really struggling to play on ladder. He didn't think he had much of a chance. He thought most of the players are better than him, and he came out first, which was a huge story for him. And actually interviewing him afterwards, he was just like, look, and I actually took his advice on board. It really helped change my mentality. He's like, look, everybody's got to deal with the same meta. Everybody's got to deal with the way that 10.13 is. I just went into it playing my best board, just looking to sort of play the best comps that I could. And he obviously came out first, so it worked for him. And so I'm excited to see him going up against a refreshed, I guess, group of pros, including one of my I won't say close friends, but one of my very very favorite European pros, Fluffy, who's an incredible person and an incredible player. So I'm glad that we're going to get to see him today as well.
Has been in Fight Night a couple times before, has been successful on Fight Night Rising before. But one thing I'm also really excited about when it comes to Fluffy is the fact that he's going to probably be running a comp that, you know, might be considered old school, old hat now, which is that Rebel Jinx comp. And just so everyone knows, this is not a comp that I think is going to fall off completely, because if you guys watched the Cloud9 Invitational yesterday, we saw it top 4. We didn't see it win any of the lobbies, but we did see it top 4 in 2 or 3 separate lobbies. So definitely going to be competitive. It's going to be less contested, because if you're like me and you're just trying to play Darkstars on ladder right now, that's the ones that you're going to be having a hard time finding. I mean, I've been hemorrhaging LP myself because I'm trying to learn these Darkstars too, but so contested, and it might ring true for these lobbies as well.
What I would say about Jinx is she got a very minor nerf on the last update. Jinx got a very minor nerf. It was a tiny attack speed nerf, but she started to fall off a little bit because Syndra is quite powerful, that has the ability to one-shot Jinx. We're also not in a meta where I think it's acceptable to go 3 offensive items on Jinx anymore. You probably need to consider defensive items. But yeah, I think Rebels is still probably okay. One variation of Jinx that I'm really looking forward to potentially seeing is the Karma Soraka variation of Jinx, where you play Blaster Brawlers, but you have the Karma to buff the Jinx. Karma got a huge buff and has had a couple of huge buffs for some patches in a row. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see if that has an impact on the Jinx meta.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I wanted to bring up a little bit later too, because Karma, I think, was, I think the idea of Karma attack speed, we get some shielding, is good. And now with those like little extra love for Karma, she was that Mystic that was kind of dropped a lot of the time. So now we can incorporate her into a couple more compositions. And with Star Guardians and Sorcerers all getting a little bit stronger in the end, even though the traits did get nerfed a little bit, the actual units did get better. We actually might be seeing a lot of people just slotting in those two Mystics, just try to get that defense going in the late game. But we are on Galactic Armory right now. I didn't quite catch the items, Excoundrel. What are we looking at right now?
Looks like it's a Last Whisper and either Locket the Iron Solari. It's Locket the Iron Solari or Deathblade.
Okay.
I'm just going to quickly pop on. I'm going to quickly pop onto Fluffy's stream just to have a quick look on Duke. I'm actually using Duke to go through all the players' point of views right now. Yeah, it is a Locket indeed. So yeah, it's a Last Whisper and Locket provided. That's an interesting one. I think obviously Last Whisper is a very popular item in the meta right now. Shredder is still good. It's a great item for Jhin. It's even a solid item for a Shaco, for instance. So it's going to open up a lot of opportunities, but also it's going to make Vanguards really bad. Like Vanguards are probably just not going to be a great front line to think about this game.
And that's the thing about Galactic Armory, right? It kind of just gives everyone a little bit of a summary of the path that they might be goaded to take just because of the items that they have at their disposal. The difference here is that we've got one of those kind of the duality of man happening. We got a defensive item along with an offensive item, and so it's gonna have to spread the love a little bit more, and we're gonna have to try to find the best case scenario for that Locket of the Iron Solari, because even with Rebels getting a little bit of a change, that is something that maybe you can add over shields, which makes then Cass a little bit stronger, like we talked about a little earlier. But we're all really excited about the things that we might see. It's the Wild West when it comes to new patch day tournaments. X, so what are you just personally so stoked about now? You had some opinions on a Jinx Rebels last week. We're here at the beginning now. It's already showing some very different, even openers so far with the Battlecast blaster for a Mr. Stylet. I'm really excited to see just the variations. What about you?
Yeah, I think what we will find is there are still probably compositions that dominate the meta, and I do think those Dark Stars Protector variations or Dark Star Vanguard variations are likely going to be in or around the top 4, but I'm interested to see what kind of Sorcerer variations we get. Is Mech Sorcerer still going to be a thing? Is the new Dwarf Planet Galaxy going to pop up, and are we going to see that impact the way that certain comps are played? Because that definitely changes up compositions. Yeah, I think realistically, I'm not expecting, from what I've seen from solo queue, I'm not expecting there to be any wild differences, but I do think there is a bit more of a healthy variation in compositions that are viable right now. And that's the most important thing about TFT. You want to feel like you have the flexibility to kind of go where your items and units take you, and you don't want to feel pigeonholed because those compositions just aren't as good as some of the others, right? So that's mainly what I'm excited about looking at this current meta.
Well, I'm definitely really excited for that as well. It's when things get stale, it can get pretty frustrating, but now we even see some of the older comps finding options and opportunities to be successful. There have been some 6 Vanguard comps that have gotten pretty popular on the ladder as well. But SunnyLu is going to be starting off on 2-2 with a second loss, and we're going to be potentially lose streaking in order to develop a little bit of an economy. He's going the Battlecast blaster route. Interestingly enough, Battlecast, the trait didn't get touched at all on that last patch, something that some people said were a little underwhelming, but I think some people are finding the openings that they like with it and then transitioning out a little bit later. But we are also seeing YouBetterKnowMe right now has that Jarvan, has the Mordekaiser. This is definitely looking like something that is going to be meta from here on out as we get some protectors online.
Yeah, this looks like it's probably going to be the Protected Darkstar variation. I don't think he's going towards a Shredder composition just because he's running the Xin Zhao in there. He hasn't really got that many extra components for Shredder right now. And by the way, Shredder is still perfectly viable. Any composition that would have used Jarvan otherwise is just getting sort of a raise in the meta right now. I've seen people running the Caitlyn hyper roll, well, the Caitlyn slow roll, where you use Jarvan and Caitlyn as your main carries. I've seen the Shredder coming back. Those are comps that I think are healthy for the meta because they give you different options in terms of utilizing your economy and utilizing, you know, your roles and your levels and stuff like that. So I actually think having hyper roll compositions in the meta makes the meta healthier overall because it just gives you more options.
Totally.
But yeah, I think YouBetterKnowMe is going for Darkstar Protector.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, when you're defending champion, you're going into this next lobby. You want to try to play something that's high percentage. And, you know, I was talking to him before the game, and he reiterated that he believes he's the worst one in the lobby. I've never met a defending champion come in with that kind of mentality before, but sometimes when you have low expectations on yourself, you tend to overachieve and, you know, get over them. And maybe Nomi is, you know, trying to set expectations just so he's going to be successful a little bit later. But let's talk about Jarvan a little bit, because this is a unit that has, you know, kind of appeared every once in a while, but has really shown up right here and right now. His attack speed buff getting buffed through this last patch, and just goes so well with a variety of different comps at this point. Anyone who's going to be attack damage, basic attack damage focused, are going to be successful with this Jarvan. And there even is an argument. I've seen people starting to build Rabadons and AP on him to even give him that win more type of situation when it comes to that attack speed. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, actually, that's something that was pretty common in Shredder compositions, for instance. You know, maybe 2 or 3 patches ago when Shredder was really popular, people would build the Rabadons on Jarvan because it was just an unbelievable attack speed steroid for your Xayah. So I have seen that. I would say that it's probably, unless, like, you have nothing better to use the rods on, it's probably just like you said, a bit of a win more statement for the Jarvan. But it is something that can work incredibly well in compositions that rely heavily on basic attacks. And you can see YouBetterKnowMe actually really starting to pop off with even just the Xayah. The Last Whisper Infinity Edge, the perfect item combo for the Xayah, can very easily be transferred over to a Jhin later in the game. He's got a great setup for a Darkstar Protector sniper composition. However, there is still the opportunity for him to stay and go down a Shredder build path. But you can see here, as we're moving over, it looks like we have another Shredder contender in the form of Magarky.
Yeah, and has the Rabadons on the Jarvan. So this is actually just a little bit of a story, Excoundrel. So when this set first came out, I noticed that his attack speed steroid was affected by AP. And I remember being like, during a game night for the podcast I'm on, I was like, I'm just going to build AP on this Jarvan. So I was first on this. I'm just going to say that out loud now.
You're right there saying it's you're first.
Yeah, I am an innovator, you know, and I was able to help. I was able to help TFT because I remember I messaged Mort and I was like, "What do you think of Rabadons on Jarvan?" He was like, "It's troll." And I was like, "It's not." Just like Infiltrator Talents on Malphite is also good. But anyway, Magarky trying to show us exactly how Shredder is supposed to work. But unfortunately for him, he's got another Shredder comp that is going to be contesting a lot of those units. Double Locket of the Iron Solari on that Jarvan. And with that Protector buff, it's going to be pretty hard to kill, especially once he does get it to that tier 2, but already at 50 gold for Magarky.
Yeah, what I would say is obviously Magarky staying at level 4, not utilizing any gold to put into experience. He's mainly looking after his economy. 50 gold at the Krugs is perfect if you're looking to slow roll for Xayahs. It's quite clear that he's going for a hyper roll composition. It could either be the Caitlyn or the Xayah at this point forward. And he probably just felt like he got 2 rods and there wasn't really anything better he could do with those rods at that point in time. And I think that the Jarvan attack speed buff is perfectly go for Rabadons on Jarvan. However, because of Jarvan's popularity, it is a little bit harder to 3-star him than it was previously. So when you're playing Shredder, because Jarvan is now such a popular unit, you are actually being contested much more than you were previously just for that Jarvan. But I'll be interested to see how Magarky plays the following 3 rounds. If he starts to slow roll for Jarvans and Xayahs, it will give us a good indication that he's going for the Shredder build.
All right, we're taking a look over on TheEnclase, a returning player from last week, looking at Celestial Brawler Protector right now. So a little bit of smattering of a bunch of different stuff. 33 gold, so has invested in rolling and leveling so far. Has a good item set to potentially do something a little bit later. Has decided to stack the Ziggs, though right now these Protectors are going to be the ones that potentially are going to bring him that victory. The Shaco in the back line is another unit that we definitely have to look out for as it gets stronger. But what is TheEnclase looking out here? I think from the naked eye, it looks like maybe we're still deciding.
Yeah, protectors right now don't give too much away because they have evolved to become a frontline that is just as synonymous with vanguards and brawlers as a potential frontline option in the early game. In fact, most pros are saying that a protector frontline, a 2-star Jarvan plus a Xin Zhao or a 2-star Jarvan plus a Rakan, is just as good or even better than your majority vanguard or brawler frontlines that you can get in the early game. So I think protectors are often just picked up to essentially be like just a solid frontline in general for your composition. What I would say is one of the buffs that really put protectors in a good spot in the early game was the Rakan buffs. Rakan got increased knockup for increased knockup time per level, and got I think a flat 100 HP buff on the previous update, on the patch that's gone as well. So Rakan has suddenly become an absolute monster in the early game, especially if you can get him to level 2 early. And that's what I think was really driving some of the powerful protector changes that we're seeing.
You slap a Morello's on him, and then everyone gets grievous wounds as well, plus a little bit of extra damage. And I think that's the one thing about this patch that I have really liked so far. We've talked about flexibility and variation, but it's really just options, right? You can have 3 different players have very similar types of comps that then all turn into 3 very different situations. And that's something that I really enjoy. But Magarky not really enjoying his time right now. Actually just get that win at 63 HP, finding himself at the bottom of the totem pole. But this is kind of all according to plan, right?
Yeah, what I would say is that he hasn't got many Zayas, and that would be a little worry for me. I think he's got until around early stage 4 to really start to be concerned about how many Zayas and Jarvans he's picking up. But his bench doesn't look particularly nice for someone that's trying to run a Zaya composition right now. He has got 6 Fioras, but Fiora is one of the least impactful units in this composition. What I do like, though, is he's potentially considering a 6 Blade Master variant. He's got the Yi there, he's got the Yasuos. I think right now the Yi is purely for the 3 Blade Master. That's going to help improve Zaya's DPS output. But he's just keeping the Yis and the Yasuos around as a potential option, which is always nice to consider, especially given how strong Irelia is now as an individual unit with her buffs. You can always consider a 6 Blade Master Irelia composition, which I think is something that we might see be iterated on over the course of this patch.
Yeah, a lot of HP to cut through, but Magarky looks like he's going to be able to do just that. And let's talk about Irelia a little bit, because if you guys look at the patch notes, you'll realize that her auto attack damage is actually the same as Jin's first 3 shots now. So they're both initial base auto attack damage is 80. And so that is a 20, I think, damage increase from previous Irelia damage. And that's just nuts. That just goes to show how good this champion is, especially now that Vayne is absolute garbage right now. It's pretty crazy, the difference now. The power kind of investment has definitely gone into the Irelia if you're running any sort of cybernetics at this point.
Yeah, so what I would say is you need to take it in context with the cybernetic nerfs. Most time Irelias get put in a 6 cybernetic composition. Very few times you see Irelia run as a good standalone unit. The biggest buffs for Irelia is not the HP and not the attack damage, because they removed 10 attack damage from cybernetics and they removed 100 HP from cybernetics. So actually Irelia's buffs are just compensating for the cybernetics loss. The biggest buff for Irelia is the fact that she got flat magic resistant armor buffs, making her naturally more tanky as a frontline unit. No longer is she going to get immediately burst in the front line. That is the biggest thing that happened to Irelia, I think, on the last update. Also, the fact that she was basically given a free 6 cybernetic bonus, or rather the sort of the drop off from the last patch. She was given that as a free bonus with the 100 HP, and I think she got 15 AD buff, but yeah, so she got 5 more than the sort of the overall cybernetic nerf, but it just makes her a slightly better standalone unit now, which is nice because Irelia felt absolutely garbage unless you were playing her in cybernetics. So I'm wondering whether we see Irelia as a bit more of a standalone option as a 4 cost, which would be very interesting to me, because that's the kind of the meta that I feel is healthy when you have like a random 4 cost that you feel that you can slot in. That's what I'm kind of keen on seeing if Irelia develops into.
Well, and she's also one of the few triple synergies that we have, right? And I feel like if you're going to have that kind of like Kennen back in set 1, right? That's kind of the point of a character like that. So they can slot in to a couple different options and be successful either as its own unit because of its own strength, or as a kind of bow on a top for something like cybernetics as your carry. So we're looking at adrehhh, someone who is coming back from last week, and we get some rebel infiltrators right now. We were talking about infiltrators a little earlier, and you're seeing Jarvan show up on the 3rd kind of team comp at this point. So even the 2-star Jarvans might actually start getting contested as maybe all 8 players at this point just wanting to start with Jarvan, because why not? Attack speed steroid, right? But looking at this, adrehhh is looking pretty good at the top. The split in HP is actually pretty massive from the top and bottom, but Brawler, Infiltrator, Rebel, Darkstar right now going to be able to transition into a couple things, but he's going to have to decide pretty shortly exactly where they want to commit, but good items though.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out what he's doing with this build. He's got the Rabadon's Death Cap. He's got the Locket of the Iron Solari. I'm trying to figure out like what this build is intending on going. Like it could be a mech build that he's working towards. It could be a Darkstar build with Jarvan picking up that Rabadon's Death Cap eventually as well. It's too difficult to tell. The other thing that I think you could be looking at is potentially just purely Astro Sniper. Like you could be looking at Teemo getting the Rabadon's Death Cap, for instance. But the problem with Teemo is if you don't have blue buff, he really sucks. So I would not be keen to go Teemo outside of having a blue buff if I were him. But the fact that he's got a Rumble in does make me feel like this could potentially be a mech pivot, and that would be interesting because I've heard some people saying that mech is still really good. Mech Infiltrator has been popping up a little bit. Mech Sorcerer is still great, even despite the Syndra nerfs. You can play mech 3-star Guardians, and that's a perfectly fine adaptation.
All right, we got a spatula, though, for adrehhh. Whenever I see that spatula, it's like time to either make the worst decision you can make for your lobby or do something amazing, because I get baited into spatula plays so often where I see like, oh, I can complete the synergy. Let me go ahead and place it there. Is there any kind of options that you see in terms of the spatula? I mean, he's got good options to turn someone into a Blade Master, maybe even an Infiltrator a little later on, but it's just hard for me to kind of grasp exactly what he's going for here. Maybe it is that Infiltrator mech, like you said, but is the spat gonna just kind of weigh in his pocket, or is it going to matter?
What I would say about spat is that there are very few spatula items that I would consider making. The safest spatula item is Celestial. With the Celestial buff, the safest spatula item is always going to be Celestial, because no one sort of has no one has a drawback from putting a Celestial in their composition, right? The healing is always going to be appreciated. The next best spat, in my opinion, is usually going to be Infiltrator, because it's a 2-cost synergy, or rather a 2 synergy that's a little bit easier to activate. Other than that, I would always just hold my spatula for a potential force of nature. That's often what I do. Like, I always just hold my spatula to potentially hit a force of nature later on, unless I'm running a spatula-dependent composition. And honestly, 6 Blade Master, not so hot right now. So there aren't many spatula-dependent compositions. The only other one that I think gets huge use is a potential Star Guardian edition for a Star Guardian comp.
All right, and then of course the Protector spat for Asol a little bit later on. It is a little bit weaker, but it can still win you a lobby. But now SunnyLu has a ton of items on the board. The Thieves Glove's definitely helping out with that. Has a good amount on the bench as well. But you got to start winning these rounds if you want to start competing, because you're already below 50 HP before the next carousel. That's a really big deal for SunnyLu. He's going to have to stabilize within the next 2 rounds if he wants to even sniff at the top 4, in my opinion.
I get an impression that SunnyLu doesn't really know where he's going with his comp, but given what I'm seeing on his bench, it looks like he's trying to hard pivot into some kind of mech build. The fact that he's now got a Jinx there as well, maybe we're looking at a Jinx picks up the items from Cogmore, and then we have the Jinx mech build that we've seen a bit of. It's really difficult to tell with what he's got. He's got a bit of everything, and I think that's the problem. He's got items that suit some kind of basic attack carry, like the Jinx, and then he's got items that are kind of more focused for mech, but he's still investing into things like Star Guardians with Syndra as well. So this is a complete mess, and I'm just not sure where he's intending on going with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of an alphabet soup situation right now for SunnyLu, you know? It's just that all the letters are in the wrong order, but they're all there, right? All the letters are there. We just got to put them in the correct order to make it valuable for SunnyLu, and he's still transitioning, and he's shaking his head. I think we maybe have gotten the call correct on that one. Yeah. He's a little frustrated.
Do you know what, Sunny? I vibe off that, mate. That's every game that's every game of TFT solo queue that I play. Don't worry, mate. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm looking at my board thinking, what the bloody hell am I building? And that's my life. Mate, I get you. That's my life.
You look down, you're like, why do I have 6 Battlecasts? How did I get here? Oh, I'm dead. Okay, fast eighth. I feel that too, my friends, as SunnyLu is going to need a little bit of a miracle to try to stabilize here. But, unfortunately for some other people in the lobby, I think on Clace, it's 28 HP. This lobby is actually dying pretty fast. And that's something that I have noticed. I thought maybe just heuristically in the lobbies that I'm playing, but it feels like these games are going a little bit quicker, which might go into the hands of some of our more aggressive early game players who really like building a lead and winning a war of attrition a little bit later on by just having 40 more HP than you at the late game to get second or third versus going for the win. That's definitely something that we can look at. But now that we have on Clace, we finally are starting to see our team comp come together. It is going to be Darkstar. We got the 4 Dark Stars. Something that we actually haven't talked about is why Darkstar is better now. We just have said that, oh yeah, Darkstar is good. But what is the big change? Is it just the units got buffed along with the buffs a couple patches ago to Darkstar? What is the core of why we're seeing this right now?
So one of the things that Darkstar really sucked at was having a good mid game. Like Darkstar classically was like one of the worst mid game comps you could possibly have. Had an excellent late game, especially if you had the Xerath, but the mid game was god awful. Shaco got a very small buff, and it felt like it was going to be very small, but actually it was game changing. That 10 mana that Shaco got removed from his ability pool has now made Shaco a really viable mid-game carrier again, and that's helping Darkstar really power on. It also gives Darkstar a multifaceted threat in the form of having Shaco being a threat to backline units, and that was one of the problems that Jhin suffered with. Jhin got buffs as well, by the way, so that there were really big buffs to Jhin, making Jhin 1 actually a good unit again. But the problem with Jhin is that he would take forever and to get through the front line until he got enough like Darkstar deaths to make him strong enough. But by that point, you'd already lost the rest of your comp. By having Shaco and Jhin, you have someone demolishing the front line and someone threatening the back line, and that balances out the Darkstar damage across the actual logistics of a composition, which is making them a lot stronger.
Yeah, and I think that kind of just goes to show one of their ideas, I think, for this patch, which is let's get the carries in the back line just a little bit more vulnerable. Let's give Jinx a little bit more counterplay. And that's why I think we saw things like the Syndra and the Shaco get the buffs that they did, and the Irelia, because those are the ones that are going to be going up to the Jinx. And one thing that I also want to talk about is Mr. I'm worse than everybody, sitting at 83 gold at the top, was at the top, still is at the top of the lobby right now, our defending champion. I think he's just kind of a liar at this point, but you better know me. Is one of the best in the lobby right now. So how is he doing it, my friend?
So he's obviously got the very strong double locket in the backline. It's keeping his backline really safe. He's running with 3 Blade Masters for that, even just that level 1 Xayah. Karma is insanely broken. Like, people are just sleeping on how insane that unit is. That's another reason that Darkstar is so good. Like, Karma is so good. Like, Karma is good. Like, Karma 2 is like legit insane. So yeah, he's just managed to pull through. Plus he's running Darkstar Xayah, which has given him an incredibly strong mid game as well. He's going to transfer that over, I imagine, eventually to another unit. But he's just had a really, really strong mid game because of the setup that he had from the early game, and he's managed to ride on that. And now he's level 8. I'm wondering whether he's looking to go for Xerath, either going for a 6 Darkstar variation. But I know that he's probably looking for Jhin. I don't imagine that it's going to be a Xayah in the late game, especially a Xayah 1. But he's got a very strong set of items on a lot of really important units right now.
The Xayah was actually pushing a good amount of damage too because of that Darkstar, so wasn't a useless unit. And I'm actually really excited to see how much damage this Jhin is going to push with the buff from the Karma and the Jarvan. That's absolutely nutty. That's going to be a ton of extra damage, and his scaling with that attack speed got better. Now with the IE, this tier 1 Jhin should be doing a good amount of work against the rest of that team, unless you're going to get bursted down right away. That's unfortunate. Chum the Water's going both ways, and YouBetterKnowMe actually going to lose out to on Clay. So all of the things seem like they were there for him, but it seems like he's kind of falling off a little bit from that lead he had. And this is where we start seeing a lot of those bottom 4 players start stabilizing themselves when it's kind of like the nitty gritty. We only have a couple more rounds. I got to commit. They might be able to pull a couple rounds off of the top couple players, maybe even sneak into the top 4.
Okay, I'm trying to work out what Fluffy's doing. He is going like, he's like half cybernetic, half sniper right now. This is wild. Is he running 6? He's running 6 cybernetic with Jhin. Okay, I imagine that he wants to move those items to Irelia too eventually if he finds another vein to replace the vein that he's got. But six Cybernetics is still good. Don't get me wrong. And Vayne is not a bad unit. I mean, you're never going to be disappointed by going six Cybernetics, even with Vayne still being your main carry. But yeah, it's interesting. He's gone for Cybernetics, which is he's still managed to keep himself in the game.
Yeah, this is actually something that the Psy Snipers is how I've kind of heard it described. It's something that is a little bit more popular than it was. We had a guy 2 weeks ago run this before some of these changes to Jin and got top 4 once with a Psy Sniper comp. It was admittedly a little bit of a weak lobby just in general, but in terms of that particular lobby of how that got into the top 2. But here it's going to be a little bit better, but we are going to need, it's usually the Teemo on the other side, but I wonder if Jin is going to take the place of that Teemo, and it's looking like he's a little cold right now, a little naked without those items. But the Vayne is going to be the one doing most of the damage. And what's actually really crazy about Vayne right now is, unlike before when all they needed was like an IE and just like a BF sword, not even like a completed second item, you're going to need to actually build her as a carry, and then she will fall off even a little bit later because of the nerfs that she recently has gotten. So we might see her produce at least for the next couple rounds, but that is going to be harder for her to do as the rounds go a little bit later. And at 27 HP, Fluffy might not have as much time as they want, but the Cybernetic Sniper comp is competitive right now, and it's looking like it's competing. Will it be able to take the victory? The answer is yes. What are you feeling, man? It's cool to see new things and see them work, and now we get to talk about why.
Well, what I would say about the Cybernetic build that Fluffy is currently running is that even with the Vayne nerfs, because I mean, Vayne got like a heavy nerf, like that she did get hit with the bat. What I would say about Vayne though is that she still drops aggro, which versus a infiltrator meta where you've got a lot of fizzes, a lot of Shacos popping up, dropping aggro versus an infiltrator is like invaluable. So if you've got Vayne dropping aggro versus a Shaco in a Darkstar composition and she's still able to continue to pop off, that's a really good thing. What I would say, maybe in my mind of hierarchy, I would say that if Aurelia Infiltrator Spat is still the absolute gold standard for Cybernetics right now. But I actually think if you don't have Infiltrator Spat, it might be a close call between Vayne and Aurelia as a carry for you, you know, in the current meta, especially just given how popular Infiltrators are. It's something that I hadn't even considered until I just saw that round from Fluffy. But now it's like triggered in my mind that, wow, aggro drop is still insanely broken.
I know, right, man? I remember reading that when they announced Vayne and just being like, we're gonna have to talk about this kind of a lot, I'm sure. But that aggro drop, I mean, people really underestimate just the time it takes to go from hex to hex, right? And just that time it takes to walk to one other person. We've all seen infiltrators get juggled between 2 different people, right? And when they're not doing damage and they're taking damage, that Vayne is going to be potentially putting in more value than an Irelia with a couple items that gets bursted down immediately because they can't get rid of that aggro. But Mr. Stylet is going to be who we're looking at right now. We have some Rebel Brawlers. This is kind of an old, quote unquote, old school comp, but something that is going to always be, I think, popular in this meta, especially with Fizz being such a great unit and Infiltrators just being kind of things that you can slap into a comp to kind of really beef up that backline. But he's going to lose out in at the end. Not enough damage for Mr. Stylet right now, and also pretty poor at 12 HP.
Yeah, what I would say is that, again, if you're running 0 defensive items on Jinx, you are going to be at risk of a Shaco. And that was a very stacked Shaco that he just played into. The Jinx didn't even have time to get her resets off because the Shaco basically killed her before that happened. Rebels are not in a good spot, and also Blasters are getting a pretty heavily hit because Ezreal also got hit super hard on 10.14. Look, Ezreal was borderline broken. Ezreal was like very borderline broken because of how quickly he could just immediately just essentially cast a Shroud of Stillness on the entire enemy team. But what I would say is that, yeah, versus Infiltrator meta, I really do feel like you need to have defensive items on Jinx.
I just think that Jinx is way more vulnerable than she used to be, and we're seeing the results of that right here and right now. As Mr. Stylet will get dropped. 3 members, I think, actually get dropped in that round. So once we see this all taken through, it does look like 3 eliminations. And these are the new tiebreaker rules, which is awesome. Yeah. I love these rules. So they're going to go into negative health and get reordered based off of that. But adrehhh and SunnyLu also getting eliminated in 7th and 8th place, respectively. So we're down to our last elimination before for our top 4. And look at how close 2nd through 5 is, 17 to 11. Just 6 HP separating 4 people in this lobby. And we get a triple item cane as well. So Leduc going to get 2 static shivs. It's not really an item in the late game that you want to see, but with 2 of them, you might be able to make something, or yeah, you might be able to make something happen. Unfortunately, we don't have our shredder comps, I think, anymore, but the moral of the story is it's just a little bit more damage along with that Titan's Resolve, which is going to be much better for, I think, Leduc overall in terms of value.
I think double Ionic Spark Vayne is fine. I think Ionic Spark on Thresh is also fine. I think they're perfectly okay. I do like it, obviously like it on the Echo because you're going to be able to proc Ionic Spark during his ultimate because it counts as basic attacks. They're not great items, but they're okay. Like you'll take the attack speed and you'll take the mana.
It's like a ham sandwich, right? It's not like the greatest sandwich in the world, but I'll eat one. You know, they'll still make me full. And
I don't know, mate. I quite like ham sandwiches, so please don't BM my ham sandwiches.
All right, I'll keep it under control, even though turkey is the grade A lunch meat. As Leduc, also good meat, by the way, Duck, is going to be continuing his life here. 11 HP and a dream potentially. We've got the tier 3 Xayah on the other side with the GA. Leduc will be eliminated in. Oh, we got a tie, so that's going to be, I believe, the RNG now to see who's going to finish in 4th place. We'll figure that out a little bit later, as Fluffy will finish ahead of them.
I cannot remember what the
second
actual
tiebreaker.
Yeah, there's a second tiebreaker, and then there's even a third tiebreaker. You would have to go look at the patch notes to clarify, but there is definitely some kind of tiebreaker scenario that Mort talked about in the patch notes that I'd love to look over. Oh, Fluffy gets 3rd, though, and he gets 3rd based on the negative HP changes. He won by 1 HP, by the way. And do you know what? Fluffy probably takes that, I think, in that scenario. His comp was definitely not looking like super late game powered. We're at 6-2, by the way, and we're at the top 2. But would you believe it? It's Darkstar and Shredder, both Jarvan-based compositions. But I'm really happy to see Shredder. I'm really happy to see Shredder because I think it's healthy for the meta to have Shredder because it gives you different power, different power spikes and different decisions to make throughout the game.
Man, and that Jhin was just pumping damage. What is that, 76k damage on that Jhin for that round? It's going to be tough to break through that Jhin, but we've also got a 3-star double Zeke's Master Yi, an item that does scale when it comes to champion tier, though how cool that is, I don't know how effective it's going to be against the Darkstar comp on the other side, which is both, I think, feeling pretty good with the double lock of the Iron Solari in terms of protection for that Jhin, but
he is running the 6 Blade Master variation of this composition. That's interesting. It's you sacrifice a little bit on utility, but you're just going for all-out damage output, which is definitely really interesting. But what I wanted to have a look at the other side. You can see YouBetterKnowMe. He's got a Rabadon's Karma that is going to make Jhin hit like a actual truck. Like that's a really, really powerful addition. But look at this, he's wiped him out.
Oh, look at that. So the Jhin unable to survive as Nomi is going to be our first lobby winner. And my friend, maybe you're way better at TFT than you're giving yourself credit for, my friend. Defending champion.
I think it was
Magarky. God,
yeah, Magarky.
We said Nomi earlier. I'm gonna, we'll get there. But still, pretty good job on there. And Magarky doing a pretty good job himself. 10 points. Darkstar unable to win that lobby. It's cool to see the Blade Masters actually killing it. There is Nomi getting 8. Magarky getting 10, Fluffy 7th. That's going to be the top 3 on Clace. Someone who is returning from last week, sitting pretty at 6. Leduc, Stylet, adrehhh, and SunnyLu, who was all of us, I think, in that lobby. Unfortunately,
I felt SunnyLu. I felt SunnyLu on a spiritual level. I was looking at his comp, going, dude, I have been there so many times before. So I felt him on a spiritual level there. But interesting enough, it's a great start for YouBetterKnowMe because remember he won last week, and he's definitely someone that I think maybe puts himself down more than he should in terms of his figurative skill level. But to come into a new patch and be able to compete at a competitive level, that shows great adaptation and a great mind for the game. So he's off to a great start so far. It's a great story for him to be able to come back from his winning streak or his winning round last week and then come in and get a 2nd place straight away. However, I think the story for me, Shredder, it's still good. Like, don't sleep on Shredder. If you hit the units, if you hit the items, you can go the classic 3 Blade Master variation, or as you saw just there from Magarky, the 6 Blade Master variation, and it's still a very good build because Jarvan is broken.
Jarvan is straight up broken right now. I mean, it was I think it was a 10% attack speed increase on his just base for that tier 1, which is absolutely nuts. I believe his old tier 2 attack speed increase is now just base attack speed increase. And then you add the karma and you get the double attack speed steroid. That is why I think we're seeing a lot of these Dark Stars, especially with the Jhin, pretty much doing true damage there on that 4th shot with those steroids. But one thing about Jarvan that's really, really interesting is the fact that it does fit into a ton of different comps. Remember when Poppy was kind of that character a little while ago, where you just kind of started with Poppy? She was that good. She was tankier than a mech. So I think Jarvan's kind of slotting into that now, and I'm just really, really excited to kind of see how players react to just these units getting contested that they've never been contested before, these patterns and these play styles that they might have already gotten used to that are completely different now, because I think some of our aggressive players that might like a Shredder comp, right, that might like a J4 Caitlyn comp are going to find a lot of success on this patch. And some of our, slower players who like making that economy, who wait a little while longer, I think might have a little bit of a harder time, because it does seem like the lobbies are going a little quicker as well. But we were going to have super dense galaxy. What is the big change here, Excoundrel, in terms of a gameplay? Each galaxy seems to have one thing in terms of that major change of gameplay. You got Nicoverse. The choice is, do you use it now or do you use it later? Trade sector, it's aggressive. What are we looking at for super dense?
Super dense is one of those kind of one shoe fits all type galaxies, in the sense that no one really has a huge drawback, and I think a few comps get slight increases in this. What I would say is that things like Shredder, things like Caitlyn Hyper Roll, anything like the sort of the build where you choose to stay at a lower level for rolling reasons, these builds massively benefit, because it's going to allow you to hit certain breakpoints a little bit more readily than you would have been able to otherwise. And I'm talking things like your synergy breakpoints. So those are the builds that really benefit from this. Plus things that spike at level 8. They benefit from this because it's much easier to get to level 7 earlier in the game. So you're usually expecting level 7 about the round at start of stage 4. So any level 8 spiking compositions, they do really well on the Force of Nature Galaxy also.
All right, and so it's really interesting to see how people decide to level before it. Some people decide not to level before they even get to the Force of Nature. Some people will pre-level. A lot of different kinds of options when it comes to approaching this galaxy. Now that we also have Dark Stars being so popular, I wonder how the super dense galaxy will affect some of these Dark Star comps coming up. As Leduc starting off with another pretty common opener, that's the Battlecast, a synergy that did not get touched at all when it came to this last patch, even though most people will tell you that it's not very good. Why do you think that was the choice to kind of leave Battlecast where it was at?
I think we talked about this last week, and what I will say is that Battlecast is a trait where it will only ever be overpowered or underpowered. That's the problem with Battlecast, and I think maybe the thinking for Mort and the TFT balance team is that it's still good early game. It's still a viable mid game. Like 4 Battlecasts still does well throughout stage 3. We're happy with Battlecast being a pretty solid early mid game option that can sometimes the stars can align and you hit the 6 Battlecast really early and you can make it work in the late game, right? Yeah. I think there are still people that are experimenting with slow roll Battlecast to get the 3 stars. I've seen people try and make it work, but I was just watching my challenger friend on EU today. He hit a 3-star Kog'Maw and a 3-star Nocturne, and he still came 7th. So what I would say is I don't think Battlecast is a great synergy, but it's still a good early game synergy, and I think people treat it a little bit like Vanguards, a little bit like Brawlers, in the sense that if you run 2 Battlecasts, you can still play around that as an early game powerhouse synergy, right?
It's something, right? It's at least something in terms of just not having any synergies, right? It's a better choice. But Mr. Stylet is going to be running an early Nico here, so we actually have a potential for some Star Guardians and even more Protectors. Another unit, Nico, by the way, that got some massive buffs going into this patch, and another unit that you'll actually see people starting to build items on. You're seeing it right now. I've seen Titans Resolved. I've seen Bramble. I've seen a variety of different items on Nico. Are we kind of overvaluing her after these buffs, or is she here to stay?
No, Nico's a great unit. I think Nico has always been a sleeper unit in my opinion, but it's just that Protectors weren't particularly viable as a frontline. But Nico, like AoE stun, like really tanky with Protectors, does really well with defensive items. Like everything on paper makes Nico an incredibly good unit. And yeah, I love the things like GA. I like Bramble Vest. I really like Morello's on her because she can apply it to so many people as well. So yeah, I think Nico's a great unit. She's never going to carry your Protector composition, but she's a great frontline CC piece. But the problem with her is that she's a 3-cost, and she does really rely on having protectors alongside her or Star Guardians alongside her to make her work. And she's that kind of makes her a bit more restricted in what she can do. Unlike Jarvan, who's like, wow, attack speed steroid, great for everybody. Nico's a little bit more specific, and I think she's a good unit. But yeah, she's never going to be like a great frontline in every single composition that you try to run.
And I don't think she's ever, that should be someone who's going to be pushing a ton of damage. And I like that they're able to think about some of these characters who aren't necessarily big and beefy in terms of looks, but show that they can also act as a tanks. And we're seeing this. I mean, we're seeing the Nico buffs right now. I mean, those early casts, I think it was a 20 mana decrease on that ultimate cast. So that's shields, that's more damage. And with that GA, we're going to continuously get there. I don't know. Was it with you that we got to see the Nico at blue buff on fight night, which was absolutely hilarious? By the way.
That wasn't me. No.
Okay, absolutely shredded the first 4 rounds, and then just fell by the wayside. But for those 4 rounds, it was super entertaining. This time,
I think if you have any more than like 50 mana, blue buff is like not a good item.
Yeah,
that's my take on blue buff. If you have any more than like 50 mana, don't bother building blue buff on that unit.
What about for people like Riven though, when you're only kind of saving 10 mana? Is it worth it there, or is it meant for like the Syndras of the world?
Is Riven like, what is she, like 25? I think she's 25 mana, right?
Yeah. So basically, putting a blue buff on her isn't, in my opinion, the most valuable thing you can do.
Someone did the maths, and I think what happens with Riven is if you put a blue buff on her, you basically get, over the course of like 16 seconds, you get like 2 more casts. So it's like barely worth it with Riven, especially because she's designed to take damage. So she's going to naturally generate mana by taking damage. You generate more mana by taking damage in TFT than you do by dealing damage. So that's why a blue buff on Riven, I feel like, is a bit of a wasted slot. Riven's not particularly in a good space right now anyway. They really nerfed her hard. But yeah, blue buff is really good for units that aren't naturally going to take damage and rely specifically on other ways to generate mana, like attacking, or in Star Guardian's case, getting natural levels through other units. So that's why it's good on things like Teemo. That's why it's good on things like Cassiopeia. That's why it's good on things like Syndra, because those are the units that are naturally not going to take damage and therefore need to have another mechanism of generating that starting mana pool.
Oh man, that's actually probably the best I've ever heard that explained, by the way. That was awesome. I love when things get summarized so well. Like me and my old teacher brain, right? When I used to work with kids, summarizations are just like kind of how you teach sometimes. And man, that was awesome. But now we're looking at, but You Better Know Me again at 100 HP on that 3-game win streak. Something that we haven't seen or looked at so far is actually that Syndra, who got hotfixed yesterday. People have been running her in protector comps. I mean, she could literally be just whatever. Like, she was
Syndra. Who thought giving Syndra 40 mana was a good idea, dude? Like,
I know, right?
It's like, she's so broken yesterday. Every game that I saw had at least 4 people just splashing blue buff Syndra. Like, they were just like, screw it. She winds up. She doesn't need sorcerers. She can do it by herself. Like, Syndra was nutty yesterday. I think she's in a better place right now. I actually think Syndra is in a good place right now. I don't think she's too strong. I don't think she's too weak. So yeah, they needed to make that hot fix.
Oof, man, and something that we saw just then were those Vayne damage nerfs, and that's why actually now I'm seeing these guys play. I actually really like the fact that people are putting Deathblade on the Vayne. It's going to scale with her tumble way better, I think, as like an initial item, because her initial damage, I think, is what really, at least what I noticed when I played her in a lot of these sniper comps, because I was trying the quad sniper Darkstar thing before our games today, and it was just, that's something I really noticed. It's just Vayne needs 2 or 3 more auto attacks to kill than she used to in the past. And while the tumble is fine, I think the Deathblade compensates for those nerfs. I think maybe even better than an IE, especially at the beginning stages of the game here.
I think what I would say, we actually had this discussion last week where we talked about, are vanguards really that prevalent? Like, what I would say about Last Whisper is that if you notice in the mid-set update, a lot of people naturally got more armor just through base stats. So you're actually always going to get some value out of Last Whisper, but you're not going to get insane value, because I do genuinely see less and less vanguards. Vanguards are like the least favorite frontline right now, and the reason that is because sorcerers are like super in meta. So vanguards suck versus sorcerers, and you just don't see many people try and run Vanguard. So the question is, like, do we actually even need to run Last Whisper on our AD carries anymore? Do we even need to run Last Whisper on people like Vayne? And are things like Infinity Edge Deathblade just a better choice? The only problem is that if you do face someone with Vanguards, you do kind of come a little bit undone without having the Last Whisper. But, you know, Last Whisper might not actually be as necessary as everybody thinks it is, because Vanguards just aren't as popular at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the 6 Vanguard comp make it to top 4, but I think you're right. Just to kind of continue our conversation from last week, I think the question was, it was a per lobby situation that time where there really wasn't a lot of Vanguards, and there was one Vanguard player, and the question was, who's going to win out? Is like the Vanguard player just going to win the lobby? But the unfortunate thing about, I think, this situation is there's always time to react a little bit later, right? You can maybe sense the Vanguard player coming and then build that Last Whisper a little bit later. You might be able to be a little bit more free and leaving those components on the bench and reacting a little bit later on. And I think that's also something that the patch really wanted to do. But I think you're totally right. People are going to really have to consider, well, this has been normal for so long. It's just been an automatic slap on a couple of these units. Maybe we might actually find a little bit more value in another place. And we get Magarky, who, you know, has precipitously fell to the bottom of the leaderboard, running a couple Blade Masters again. Seems to like that Shredder comp a little bit, if I say so. But the Xayah is going to be pretty strong, but we're coming up on some beef on the other side. And, you know, beef, it's what's for dinner, apparently.
Yeah, what I would say is that this is something that we've seen a lot in pro play. If someone finds a comp that they think works really well, they will often just try and stick to it. And I think Shredder is in a good spot right now. He's at a great, he's you know, even though he's at 50 HP, what I would say his economy is in a great space. And he is starting to build up those units. He's already got a 2-star Xayah on the board. He's got a Riven there. He's working towards 6 Blade Masters right now. This is the Force of Nature Galaxy, so obviously he's going to benefit from it very heavily because he's not going to need to get as many levels to actually activate these synergies. So I think this guy, if he continues, gets level 7, will actually look to spike really soon. And the Force of Nature Galaxy is going to help him out a lot.
And you know, and for everyone at home, is why it's so important, especially for the Shredder comp on the Force of Nature Galaxy, the Super Dense Galaxy, is it kind of it compensates for like the inherent drawback of this particular comp, right? That you're going to be rolling a lot, you're going to be spending a lot of money, you might fall behind in terms of experience, but the game is just giving you an extra unit, so you're going to be given a little bit more wiggle room. But right now, Magarky not really using a lot of that wiggle room to his advantage. He's running out of wiggle room already, below 50 HP at 3-2. Like you said, it's not an emergency situation right now, but we're getting pretty close to that line.
Yeah, he's definitely taking more HP damage than I think he would have liked. One thing to note is that he doesn't actually have the Infinity Edge for the Xayah, so her damage output is massively stunted. And when he gets the Infinity Edge, that's when he's probably going to start being able to shred that front line more consistently. But without the Infinity Edge, going to be a bit of a tough ride for him. What I will say though, if you look at the next round, it is the Carousel round. Unless he gets trolled, he should be able to pick up a BF sword, and he should be able to activate that shredder fully.
Picking first, that is the game's way of saying, hey, it's now time for you to come back, but really it's for the game to tell me to pick up the Force of Nature and then die in the very next round and waste it for everybody. That's how I like to be picked first in a carousel. EncLace, 96 HP, 30 gold, pretty good economy. He's looking pretty good using the Bard, a unit we actually haven't seen at all so far today. That's going to help him get to that experience and hopefully get to an even number, because 7 out of 32 is awful to look at. But 4 Protectors, 2 Celestials for him, so the Protector is going to be shielding and also healing a little bit while shielded. And that's one of those, I think, synergies that, while not super visual, is something that is very valuable. Like you even mentioned earlier, Celestial is just one. If you have a spat item, you can make the Celestial. It's just one of those things that benefits everybody.
Yeah, Protectors actually just naturally benefit from Celestials because most people run Rakan and Zinzao, who are Protector Celestial. So you're just naturally going to be able to fit Celestial in most protected compositions. And as you said, when you have the shield, any direct healing to your HP during that shield is going to get huge value. And that's one of the benefits of having Celestials in protected compositions. What I would say is that I've actually seen a couple of these Protector Mystic compositions float around. They were kind of like borderline popular on the last patch, but they're sort of generating more and more popularity, especially in the mid game on the current patch. So I'm expected to see more Protector Mystic, especially because, you know, again, it's the similar premise to the fact that with Vanguard Mystics, except for your frontline actually does more damage. So obviously you just leave your Cassiopeia to constantly cast while your frontline goes off. But the fact that he's got a Shaco does make me think that potentially we could see him switch from Protector Mystics eventually into Protector Dark Stars.
Definitely has that option. The Shaco, like we said, such a contested unit, so good right now. Jarvan getting items stacked on him for the first time in what feels like forever. And the Karma is also showing up with, I think, reckless abandon at this point. Probably the unit that I've been most impressed with so far today. And again, I think maybe she suffers from the fact that she doesn't have like a huge Rakan ult or something, right? It's just a leash in a bubble, right? But in the end, I think what happens with Karma is that she gets undervalued because of that. While she's visually not as striking as some other ultimates in the game, in terms of what she's providing for the team and your carry, I think is always going to be valuable, no matter who she's leashed to. And I think goes to show that she's just valuable when she gets plugged in. And the other thing about Mystics is versus Vanguards, in my opinion, is Mystics have carry potential with Cass, right? Versus the Vanguards, who are going to have to hopefully win a war of attrition and just kind of beat you with, their HP. The Mystics on the other side have the ability to do some damage and also help with that magic resist, because sorcerers are pretty popular right now.
Yeah, and what actually has been surprising for me for these first two games is we haven't actually seen a huge amount. You can see now that Self, he's going to have the Star Guardians potentially going here. He hasn't yet found the Syndra, I believe, but I've seen less sorcerers than I expected, but lots of Dark Stars, which is what I definitely expected coming into this particular game. But you can see how Star Guardians are still super good. Like, Star Guardians are insane right now.
And I'm glad, because it's been a while since Star Guardians were good. And that's the thing about like the design for Star Guardians that I really appreciate right now, is when the whole comp that you were supposed to run with Star Guardians depended on a unit that was neither a Star Guardian or a sorcerer with that Riven, we needed to make some adjustments. So I think the adjustments that they made, making each individual unit stronger, was exactly the way to go to make them viable in this meta. And I don't think it was an over adjustment so far. We'll see as we continue on. At least today, we're going to be able to make some decisions. But Mr. Stylet sitting pretty. 9-game win streak, 53 gold. This is exactly where you want to be at this moment in time. Tons of options, tons of ways to approach even the way he uses his items with this comp. Where would you go? We're looking at Protectors and Star Guardians. I think you could go either way, but we're going to that Mystic Star Guardian that maybe you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm expecting 6 Star Guardians as the play here. Obviously, you put in Mystics because it's probably the best thing that you have on offer. He doesn't have a blue buff for Syndra, which I'm expecting him to want to potentially play. He has two options. You either go full Star Guardian, commit to heavy defensive items for your Nico, and run Protectors as the front line, or you play 6 Star Guardians, don't have that many Protectors, and yeah, he's going for the heavy Nico front line, which makes a lot of sense. So I'm wondering whether he's going to cut down to 3 Star Guardians. The only issue that he's facing is, like I said before, hasn't actually got a blue buff for Syndra, and that's going to massively cut the DPS potential of this composition.
And it seems like he's going to be okay for it now. I'm actually really interested to see the damage charts and where these particular units lie in terms of where we are in the mid, transitioning into the late game a little bit later. And of course, we're going to see that Ahri, but look at that Nico damage as well. Pretty competitive towards that Ahri. We do need that blue buff, though. If your Syndra is the carry for this comp, and it's really funny that we have the Janna on the bench already before we even have the Syndra with the blue buff available. Do we even have the Syndra right now? I don't see one.
No, there's no Syndra.
So yeah, that is the unit that he is looking for. Going to be sitting at 50 gold. At least we're at a 10-game win streak, so he's going to be developing that gold, and also has a pretty big, room for error here, as EncLace and Mr. Stylet both at 96 and the third place at 63. So that's like 3 rounds extra that they're going to have to work with.
This is generally what happens when you have a player that's like doing really well and win streaking, like we have with Mr. Stylet and EncLaze. They generally deal a ridiculous amount of HP damage to the people below them, and that's why you often get these big gaps opened up between the top players and those kind of sitting in the middle of the pack. It's because usually when you take a loss to one of these players, that loss is absolutely ridiculous. Speaking of a player that's had a pretty good set of runs so far, Mr. Magarky. He's got the 3-star Zaya. He's got the items. We're looking at a guy who's now working towards 6 Blade Masters, I assume, but he has kind of hit the units that he needs to hit. And now he just needs to level up and I think throw those 6 Blade Masters in. And we're looking at a strong comp again.
You know, it's funny because you would assume that because each board is technically the same. In my opinion, the way that Magarky plays is super entertaining to me, right? Just the commit to the Blade Masters, right? The commit to the Xayah. And, I think that takes some cojones to actually, say, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do what I know I'm good at and keep on going. And Magarky, man, you're inspiring to me. Maybe I need to stop being so fancy, take off my fancy pants and put on my carry pants instead, and copy you, my friend, because this Xayah, you've been able to get to tier 3. Look how fast she's attacking, my friends. So good. So good.
Oh my God, look at the speed of Xayah. That is actually just ridiculous.
The Gatling gun. Jesus Christ, it's closer to a machine gun.
Actually like a full-on Gatling gun going on. What I would say, and I'd love to expand on that point that you just mentioned, it's something that competitive TFT it's been the discussion in competitive TFT for a very long time, should it be a viable strategy to just say, I'm going to force this one comp and win? And it's something that I think doesn't have the right answer, because I think competitive TFT is a very vibrant and sort of diverse pro scene. But we all remember maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, where Kiyun won by just forcing Mech Infiltrator over and over again. Like we all remember that. But it is like what has been proven, and irrespective of what you think about it, it's been proven to be a good strategy. Like, it's a strategy that can work, and I'm interested in following Magarky over the course of these next few games to see where he ends up by going for this Shredder strategy, because if he does it in the third game, we can assume that his game plan is just force Shredder every game.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've actually had Fight Night Rising lobby wins, Fight Night Rising wins by people who are just like, I'm just going to play Cybers, right? That's Primal, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, just played Cybers and won the lobby. And it's funny because he was like, I didn't intend to do it. We just kind of happened to go Cybers every time. But I think it's more than playing one team comp, right? Because it's about identifying the information and knowing what situation you're currently in playing that comp, right? There's so many different little details to say, okay, well, in this lobby, I'm actually contested, so I'm going to have to play this way. Or in this lobby, I'm not contested, so I'm just going to spend my money like Scrooge McDuck, right? There are different ways of playing a singular comp, and understanding the game state you're in to play to its maximum value is, I think, where these kind of omni, we used to call them Yordle players, the omni Yordle players, right? Or these omni Shredder players might find a little bit more success, because he was going to always be on the bottom side of this HP total because of the comp he's running, but now he's got all of the pieces. He's on fire.
Yeah, and I think to go even further from what you said, there's a certain skill in being able to maneuver a game that is in its essence purely random, or at least like a significant portion of it random, into your favor every time. Like, there is a skill involved in that. Like it, love it or hate it, there is a skill involved in being able to manipulate a game that is going to throw you things at random to end up with the end result that you were looking for from the start. And so, like, I think it's a really interesting discussion. I don't want to get into like a huge amount, because I think it could just end up dominating the entire cast. But it is one of those things that it has both its positive and negatives. And I actually, like I said, I love Shredder being back, because it puts pressure on the mid game, and previously there wasn't enough pressure on the mid game, and that's what kind of led to the Jinx meta that we had. Now we've got pressure back again, and you have to be a bit more careful with your HP.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is absolutely hilarious. Like, it is cracking me up, and then just this, and then just like the silence of just nothing after getting eaten by Urgot. Man, it's like the game can't even keep up with the Xayah. But that's the direct counter to it, baby. It's just Urgot. He's hungry. He's looking for some chicken, and he got to feed himself a little bit, but. I think to kind of put a pin in it, I think TFT might actually end up becoming like a world where it's our omni players versus our flexible players, right? Just like one tricks and Summoner's Rift versus people who can play 3 or 4 different top laners, right? It is something that will always be talked about, and I think will always have a worthwhile discussion, because we have to talk about stuff like that, right? Because we haven't decided what the right way to play TFT is, and maybe it is both. Maybe it is a world where everyone is welcome here. SunnyLu, 8 HP, look at that face. I make that face all the time when I play. By the way, it kind of reminds me of that meme with the dog, right? With the fire all around him. Like, everything's gonna be okay.
It's fine. Yeah,
it's fine.
I think a look at Sunny. I mean, is he trying to go for a 6 Darkstar here? Is he desperately searching for Xerath? Yeah, this is interesting. Like, I think he's got. I think he's genuinely in a pretty strong spot with the Shaco that he's got. I agree with latching the Shaco to the Karma given the items. I don't think Sunny's in an awful position right now. I just don't think it's going to be strong. Like if he matches up into one bad matchup, that's his game over, and this could be a bad matchup. I don't know. The Shaco is very strong though.
Yeah, I think the Shaco should be fine unless he gets fourth shotted by the Jhin, but the Jhin does not aggro the Shaco, so adrehh will be taking that damage, and SunnyLu, all of a sudden, in 6th place now. 4 HP for Leduc, 7 for adrehh, 8 for SunnyLu, 79 for TheEnclase at the top side of the leaderboard, followed by we've got Self at 47. So again, I think, and we haven't even gotten to Kane yet, we will have at least 4 people eliminated by the time we get there. And the game is faster right now, and I think people are adjusting. So and especially things like you said, with Shredder being there, it's inherently going to speed up that game, because when you lose by a lot, right? So we're seeing the effectiveness of it, but we've got level 9s popping up right now, and SunnyLu at level 8 is going to have a really, really hard time against Self on the other side, but the Shaco is going to be the carry that they need, and is going to be pretty good against the Sorcerer comp. Mort says is the direct counter to this comp is that Shaco, and it's because it's hard to hit.
Yeah, also just infiltrators in general are very good at putting pressure on the backline. What I would say about we were just talking about why everyone's getting so low in terms of mid game. I think it's because there are 2 factors. You said the Shredder comps like that are becoming a bit more popular again, which is nice because there is something to put pressure on the mid game. But also these players, they've had 1 day to adjust to the new patch. Yeah. They've had 1 day to figure out what's good in the mid game and what's not good in the mid game. So I'm basically fully expecting the next time around that we do this, probably next week, right, that we're going to see a little bit more of a stable mid game once these guys have figured out exactly what it is and what it isn't is strong in that part of the game. I think what you're seeing from people like Leduc and adrehh and Sunny is they're kind of scrambling because they're not exactly sure how to navigate the mid game the same way that they were able to on 10.13, and that's just a natural change that occurs when you have a big meta shift like we have on this last patch.
All right, and actually that Zephyr making it so that Karma could ult the Shaco, but I don't think SunnyLu is going to last very much longer here. And this is just the unfortunate thing of just hitting yourself in the foot with 8 HP, right? The second that you actually stabilize, you only one matchup that on that rock, paper, scissors needs to go the other way, and you're going to get eliminated, as we do, I believe, get 3 eliminations again in that round. Magarky at 3 HP, 27 on 4th, which is going to be Mr. Stylet, who was sitting at 96 HP for what felt like most of this game, and I don't think has won since we saw him lose a little while ago. So this is definitely tightened up on TheEnclase. This is a top 2 probably for TheEnclase just based off of that lead, but everything behind that is up for grabs again, and Fluffy slowly but surely, quietly, all of a sudden on fire in 2nd place. I'd be interested to see what he's running. But Magarky still getting those Blade Masters. We have Janna as well, some good displacement, but a good variety here actually with this last 5.
Have we still not got Syndra for?
No.
Yeah, that was the problem, I think, for him. He just didn't have Syndra. Magarky, unfortunately, does not have the same powerhouse that he did previously. He's not got a 3-star Jarvan. He's not got a 3-star Yi, and he's really relying on like that 3rd item for Xayah is a little bit suboptimal. What I do like him, there's something interesting here. He's made a Star Guardian. He's made a Star Guardian Aurelia, which may seem completely random, but obviously when you've got Janna, she turns Star Guardian's basic attacks into true damage. So that might actually make Aurelia a little bit more powerful and might help him out. But I just don't see him with this current power getting through many other people. And there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all true damage as well. So
wait a second.
All right, we got Fluffy now in 2nd place, running the quad sniper Cybernetic that we were talking about a little while earlier. So it was, I think, the Jhin in place of the Teemo at first, and then now we've got all the snipers, good items on the Vayne. We got the blue buff on the Teemo. This comp is absolutely terrifying when the Teemo gets to ult. If the Teemo is like taken down by a Shaco or something, then it's really going to be really bad for them. But it's all about keeping this backline safe with that front line and that force, this force of nature on Super Dance, I think, really helping them out on this particular galaxy to try to even get a couple more buffs in there with that Cybernetic. That's why you're seeing it on the Vi, who did get nerfed, but is going to be able to complete that ultimate. These snipers are going to need to be doing a little bit more damage. and it looks like they might be able to pull this out.
We'd love to see. I mean, this is actually a interesting take on a composition that I hadn't really seen. It does look like the Jinx might get this one, though. I think this will be... No, wait a second. Wow, it actually clutches it. Vayne actually clutches the round there. This is a very interesting variation of a comp. I have not seen many people run this, and this is I love to see it because this is not something that people were spamming a lot of on the first 2 days, and it looks like Fluffy is beating out a very strong lobby with essentially 4 snipers, which like has always been fringe meta, but never really been heavily contested.
Yeah, and I love it. I loved playing Rangers back in set 2. That was kind of like where I cut my teeth in TFT, got my highest rank with that comp. But it's kind of similar in terms of these snipers, in a sense of we got to keep that backline safe. And if you chew through that front line, or if the infiltrators get to me, it's going to be a little rough going. And I think the rock, paper, scissors just so much more obvious for some of these comps on this patch too, which I think in terms of clarity for the game is a really good thing. You got to give compliments to the design there. But now I really think Fluffy, I think he might have this based off of even these items. Morello's on Teemo. Jesus Christ.
But potentially, I think he could have this. I think he's definitely in a strong position. I would potentially see that he's in a good spot, but I just feel like if someone hits like their late game power spikes, like with a proper Darkstar comp, that it could be like a good Xerath might end up like ending this composition, right? So I think Fluffy's in a good spot to take first here, but he's definitely not completely out of the woods.
All right, and he's going to continue that win streak at 8 in a row, has a good amount of gold, will be able to get to level 9, is on TheEnclase now, has suffered a couple losses as this has really tightened up. We do have our top 4 this time around. As Stylet will finish in 4th place. Nomi again. I mean, basically what the pattern when it comes to fight night is, if you're able to top 4 in 3 of the 4 lobbies, you're probably going to finish in the top 3. So in terms of a baseline, Nomi absolutely crushing it right now. Fluffy, same exact situation. And on TheEnclase, actually, I think they're all in our top 5 coming into this lobby. And yeah, so this is going to really solidify, I think, our top 5 moving into halftime. But on TheEnclase with a double Frozen's Heart with that Thieves Gloves is not the best option for that Urgot. At least with the extra Hex, you actually are going to get a little bit more value. You're going to get thrown up. The Chum the Water's not going to be doing much, as on TheEnclase going to be taking the victory there pretty handily as well.
I would say that double Frozen Heart is actually pretty lit on Urgot.
Yeah.
Makes him really tanky, gives him some mana, also really slows down the attack speed of the people like the sniper compositions and the Jinx compositions. That was actually a really, really pog roll. I actually think that was a solid roll for Urgot in that scenario.
You've convinced me. You've convinced me, my friend. You know, Frozen Heart, I say, like all the time, it's one of those things that I say, oh, it's an undervalued item, especially when you get to. I've said those words before, but I just got to commit now this time on their Urgot, right? Got to commit. And so now Mr. Stylet trying to commit to 7-star Guardians this time around. All those auto attacks are going to be true damage, but is that going to be enough? We're going to see the Echo on the other side of on TheEnclase's team. This time the Thieves Gloves, very, very strong. It's going to be the Shojin's GA on that Urgot. Grabs the stacked Nico to start, but at least the GA will trigger this time around, and nice polymorph as well on that Lulu, triggering the GA. Only the Urgot and a Dream, as Fluffy, you were right, is actually going to get taken down. It's going to be on TheEnclase versus Stylet here for our final 2, as our quad sniper comp finishes in 3rd.
Yeah, I just felt like it wouldn't have the legs in the late game. Like, I think it's a really good mid to sort of early late game comp, but I just felt like it didn't have the legs to potentially get into a top spot.
All right. But we will see if Urgot has enough legs. Are 6 legs enough to get into the top spot, my friends? We got a protector spat as well that's going to be going on to somebody soon. I wonder who he is going to choose. Maybe just waiting for an Acel that hasn't come just yet. This could potentially be the last round. What's your prediction here?
I think this Urgot, I mean, double Zephyr in the late game is so good. Like, if you catch the Nico, the fact that he's also playing without a Syndra is kind of, without a Syndra with blue buff, is kind of hampering him. I just think that this is going to go over to TheEnclase. I just get the impression he's got the stronger comp right now.
Yeah, I'm looking over at the Shaco, who has been blinking all over the place. That Bloodthirster, too, an item that we actually haven't seen a ton of, but has always been bread and butter on the Shaco. And it looks like you are right, as TheEnclase will be the victor of the lobby. No, another good variation in terms of what we saw in the top four. Some similar comps from that first lobby, but anything surprising, anything that you want to kind of talk about before we go over scores?
Yeah, I think quite clearly the most surprising one was the 4 Sniper Fluffy composition. It's definitely something that I wasn't expecting to see a lot of. 4 Sniper wasn't exactly great on previous iterations. It was something that was really good mid game, and then you kind of had to tech into 2 snipers because it gave you more flexibility and other synergies later on. But I wasn't expecting it to do so well for Fluffy. He's definitely what the impression that I get from Fluffy's strategy is I don't want to compete with any of the really popular builds right now, so I'm just going to go for something that I think can consistently get me a top 3 or top 4 finish. And I think it's worked out for him. But yeah, that was a Protectors again, still very strong. We're expecting it.
Yep. All right. So we do have our scores coming up, and this is going to be our scores going into the break. I believe Nomi's going to be up there. Yeah. Look how close the top side is. And like we said before, I think the top side really solidified themselves in that lobby with TheEnclase getting 16, Magarky. Man, I love that name. 14. YouBetterKnowMe. 14. Fluffy. 14. Look how consistent Fluffy is, by the way. Stylet at 11, and then Leduc, adrehh, and SunnyLu rounding out the top 8. This is going to be nuts, I think, for these next 2 rounds. So in terms of, before we go to break, something I actually really want to ask you is in terms of a competitor, right? If you are in that group of, 14 to 17 points, how do you approach lobby 3? Right? Because there's a couple ways to do it, but in terms of a competitor, if you were sitting in their chair, how would you approach this next lobby?
So personally, I would be looking for consistency. I still think that TFT is a game of consistency, and I think you get rewarded for consistency. I would be looking to do a Fluffy. If I just come out with 4 7s across the entire day, I'm really happy with my outcome. I think realistically, the way that you play TFT is going to be the same the majority of the time. Most of these guys are kind of like play what you get or play the strategy that I was planning on going for in the first place. But yeah, I'd just be looking to try and get something that's going to solidify me a top 3 spot. Because if I get 3 top 3s, it's quite likely that I'm going to end up in the top 3 at the end of the day. Unless everybody else is having, there are 3 or 4 other players having exactly the same day as me. But yeah, just go for consistency. That's the main plan.
All right, are we going to find that consistency? We will find out after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Excoundrel and Boop back here for Lobby 3 of Fight Night Rising, the European edition. We have got a tight lobby right now, as I believe the top 3 players all tied at 17 points. We got Magarky, Nomi, and TheEnclase, I believe, in the top 3 spots, with Fluffy not very far behind. Basically, the top 5 players are on even footing, and this next lobby will definitely show us what the end of the night might look like. So we talked a little bit about potential strategies coming in here, and I was doing a little bit more thinking and just kind of thinking, am I going for a win here, right? Do I go for the top 4 or do I go for the win in this lobby? You can't really decide sometimes until you're in the game, but if I'm focused in on this lobby and I'm looking at who my competitors are, knowing that Fluffy is playing things that no one else is really playing, right? Who do I kind of attack? Who am I kind of going after?
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy, and one I think in the third game, it's not something that I would massively lean on. Like, no one wants to compete for Shredder, right? Like, you can do it, but you're definitely just mostly hamstringing both of you, you know, going into the game. Especially now that we have slow roll, where it's even harder to hit your 3 stars in a timely manner. I think at this point you're again just looking to be consistent, and I don't think you can ever go into a TFT game and say I'm going in to win, because like it's very difficult to have that mentality. I think the best thing that you do is I'm just going to go in and try my best to get a top 3 finish, and that's probably, especially for some of the people in our top 3 right now, going to be good enough to. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. You're going to be good enough to secure me a spot coming back into the next week of Fight Night, but it's so tight on the points right now, so tight. Like if we get, you know, like YouBetterKnowMe, Fluffy, etc., getting another top 3, they've both been really consistent. Then I think we're in a situation where our 4th game is going to be insane.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective again, Nomi got last in a lobby and then won the whole night last week, which doesn't happen very often. It's definitely a unique situation, but seeing how these lobbies are pretty close still, we might see a world where someone like Nomi or TheEnclase or even Magarky, who could potentially, I think, bomb out in 8th place based off of his playstyle, which is why I think I've enjoyed watching him so much. They might finish in 8th, 7th, 6th. Then all of a sudden, literally everybody is on tap for that top 3, for that 4th lobby. But we are going to be getting some answers. But in terms of answers we have gotten in terms of team comps, we've seen the Dark Star. We've gotten some crazy cool, I think, sniper. We got the Cybernetic sniper comp. We got just the regular quad sniper. But something we haven't seen is even in our sorcerer comps, no Syndras. So far, we have talked about it just a little bit, but the difference between 40 and 50 mana is, I guess, enough to not play her in Fight Night Rising, because it really hasn't been something that we've seen, and has definitely been, I think, the talk of the town coming into today.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether, like, for instance, in our previous game, Style couldn't get the Syndra. I just don't think he found the Syndra. And plus, running Syndra without blue buff always feels really bad. I still think Syndra is the strongest mage carry that there is, if you're looking to have an individual mage carry, because obviously we're not running Riven anymore. So if you're looking to have a mage actually deal the damage, both Victor and Syndra are still probably the strongest mages that you can run in that scenario. But I just get the impression that no one found the right setup for Syndra in the games that we've seen. I'm still expecting to see some Syndras in the meta. I don't think she's completely gutted by just giving her an extra 10 mana on top of her current cost, because now we're actually at release Syndra. We're basically released Syndra with better quality of life updates, and that's still a good place for Syndra to be, I think. You know, release Syndra was still very good.
Oh, this is my favorite. I don't know why I love Nicoverse so much, but basically, it's, am I going to use my Nico's early, or am I going to use it late? And I think in a world where, I don't know, I'm not a huge Shredder player myself. I could definitely be a little fast and loose with my rolls on that one. In terms of Nicoverse, how does it affect those kinds of comps, those high roller or those kind of high investment comps where you're going to be spending a lot of money? Do you save some? Do you use a Nico's for 1 cost unit? Maybe to get to that tier 3? What do you think?
So Nico's on like hyper roll or slow roll compositions always feels kind of bad, because you're always going to be using it on a fairly low cost unit for the most part. However, it can be the difference between you getting a 3-star and not getting a 3-star, which is sometimes really impactful. The one thing that you have to worry about when you're playing on a Nico's universe is that most people looking for high-end carries like 5 costs and 4 costs they're going to spike much quicker because they have the double Nikos to get into the all-important 2-star variations of their particular carries. And that makes slow roll compositions a little bit more risky because if you don't hit your stuff before people start randomly slamming their Nikos on important targets, that's going to be an issue. That will be an issue for you. So, yeah, it is important to just keep in the back of your mind that as soon as someone hits an important 5 cost or an important 4 cost that they want to add the Nikos to, you're going to start seeing massive power spikes a lot earlier than you would do usually from the comps that are looking to ramp up.
Yeah, Nico's kind of reminds me of kind of like long distance races, if that makes sense, where there's always a pace setter and everyone's kind of jockeying behind that pace setter. And then eventually someone's like, all right, we're going, right? I'm going to max out here. And then everyone has to react, right? And maybe that pace setter gets a little bit too ahead of themselves and falls precipitously down to the bottom. Or maybe they get too far ahead and they end up winning. But all of that can definitely happen in Nicoverse. But one thing, again, just if you're wondering at home why some of these players are leaving their globes on the board, it's kind of a min-maxy type of thing. You keep the Nikos on the board in case you get a ton of items that you don't want those Nikos to take the spots of those items. So you'll actually see some people keep the orb through Terror Bursters a little bit later if you're feeling that way. But there's also, in terms of Nikos, there is a few select group of players. I'm thinking of one guy named Treebeard who are Bard Nico people who, when they get the Bard, they'll just double Nico the Bard to get the XP to get to the 5 costs and kind of compensate for using Nikos a little earlier that way. But we've also got 3 Nikos for Stylet now, so tons of options. But I know my biggest thing is when I have the Nikos, it's actually pulling the trigger, right? Actually dropping that Nikos onto the unit and using the item to what I believe the best ability. Because we've seen people use their Nikos and then make their comps weaker because of it, based off of the units that they choose.
Yeah, I think in this situation, because we were in a place where Jhin and Darkstar is really strong, I am actually expecting quite a few people to potentially be going for like 2-star Zeraths, 2-star Jhins super early on. I'm looking here at Styles composition and I'm thinking, okay, he's got a Morellonomicon and he's got a tier. Like, this is someone that could very easily go into Astro Snipers if he wanted to. It could be a Cassiopeia, Vanguard, Mystic composition. He could very easily go into Syndra if he finds another tier here as well. So I think there are options right now, but he is kind of limited to builds that would use Morellonomicon and tier pretty well. And those are kind of limited builds, I guess. He's looking at the Nikos. Is he thinking about, or is he thinking about 3-star Caitlining right now? Is he really thinking about that?
Oh,
he needs one more Caitlyn and he could just hit a 3-star Caitlyn. Like, he's laughing about it. I don't know if it's the play. I don't think it's the play.
I don't care if it's the play or not. Do it. Just do it.
I don't think 3-star Caitlyn is that good. Like, I understand these units are good, but I don't think 3-star Caitlyn is that good. You know what I mean?
you know, as a caster and as a sports consumer from everything from esports to Fletch Sports, like, I have always been on the entertainment side, right? Like, I don't necessarily need the cleanest play ever, right? To be entertained, and sometimes I just want to see what happens, right? I want to see what happens to the lobby if we do 3-star this Caitlyn, if that is going to even be an effective thing, because like you said, we can 3-star Kog'Maw and get 7th place, right, a little bit later. So I wonder if it's just a little bit of a meme, but you're going to hold them. I think you got it at this point, even though we're doing a little bit of a fast rolly type of comp, spending a lot of that money. These are going to be cheaper units. We might think about Nicoing once we hit our 8th Caitlyn a little later if you just can't find the other Caitlyn, but you should be able to 3-star this Caitlyn at some point.
Yeah, he sold the Caitlyn's. He might have. Yeah, he actually sold the Caitlyn's on his bench, so he essentially has given away that he's very not likely considering a 3-star Caitlyn. The problem with Caitlyn is the only composition which I think she's even remotely viable as a 3-star is in the Jarvan composition. If you're not hitting Jarvans, there's not really much point you going for Caitlyn's. So Caitlyn as a 3-star carry just isn't that crazy viable these days.
And I don't know, in your opinion though, would you rather have an item in place of that 3rd Nikos? Do you want to know that you have options coming up, or would you rather have the stats on item right now based off of what you're seeing on his board?
3 Nikos is a bit overkill for me. I'd rather have had the item. I think in Nicoverse, like, the extra Nico for me isn't making like a game different. That isn't game breakingly different. Wow, what a troll. What a troll. I hate these kind of carousels, especially when they're all bloody Zephyrs.
I
It's
know.
like it makes the game 10 times harder. When everybody has a Zephyr, you're like, oh, bloody hell. The whole game has suddenly become much. I have to pay attention like 10 times more.
Guess I'm not playing Blitzcrank. Guess just that's out of the question. Everything is different now. No one is safe, no matter where they stand. A lot of differences, Excoundrel. You know, and at least it wasn't like a full spat round, right? Because then it's just a race to ASOL is usually what happens. But, you know, Zephyr is at least one of those, I think, kind of high IQ items, those chess-like items that players, I think, are going to be a little frustrated at, but we as viewers might be able to talk about a little bit longer, because now that there's Zephyrs, you said it changes the game. Like the whole game is different. You're gonna just put everyone in a different spot, or you just take the fact that every game is gonna lose one member for the first 5 seconds.
Look at this as well. Talk to me about your opinion on this, because SunnyLu is not combining items. Now, he doesn't have the best items in the world to combine, but I know a lot of Korean players would slam a Ludens. Just if they have a Ludens, they'll slam a Ludens really early on. SunnyLu is greeding, and I guess you can do on the Nico verse, but I'm never like a huge fan of being this greedy. Especially when you're in the position that SunnyLu's in. He doesn't even have a great economy either. You know, I don't know. This is a bit sus for me.
Well, to kind of speak on what you were talking about, I think if he were richer right now and the loose streaking was, I think, a little bit more intentional, then maybe you can make the argument for keeping the item off. But Ludens is just one of those items that can just give you more damage in the early game, and you're going to get more procs and more casts because the rounds are a little bit longer. And just to keep a little bit of perspective, too, how good Ludens was on someone like Lucian back in set 1 and set 2, right? Even set 3, it could totally work, but it's just when you get that AoE splash damage early on in the game, it's just such a good power spike that you're going to get a lot of value out of it, versus, and it's going to be the same as like Static Shiv, which is it's going to fall off a little later, but at this point when you're already at 78 HP, I think you've lost too much HP and you've needed to slam that Ludens. That's my opinion.
Yeah, what I would say is maybe I can let me kind of work it out from Sunny's perspective. His economy is not bad, but it's not great either. However, maybe he's so keen on keeping the lose streak alive that he doesn't want to slam the Ludens on the off chance that he could potentially get a win. I don't think it would net him a win at level 4, but like I'm just getting in his mind. He might also be saying, well, if I'm building an economy, if I'm looking to play a very heavily eco-focused game, I've got to spike really hard. So maybe he's saying, I need to spike with the correct items, and Ludens isn't going to give me the power that I need. When I have to come online to start preserving HP, Ludens is not going to be good enough. So, like, you know, I know I criticized him, and maybe I would have slammed the Ludens. If I were to get inside his head, that's maybe the way that he's thinking about it in this particular scenario. So it's just having a look at the difference in perspective, I guess, from that. Maybe he's so keen to be able to get a really good spike that he doesn't want to make that decision to sort of to slam it. But he had, like you correctly pointed out, his HP's in like danger territory right now.
Yeah. I mean, being at below like 80 here is actually not the greatest, right? And we have a couple players there, but he's below 70 right now. So YouBetterKnowMe is keeping his Nikos just on the board we were talking about earlier. It's just a maximization of RNG potential in case the Terrorburst just decide just to make it Christmas and give you 8 million items. But until you use the Nikos, you'll actually see some of those players keep there. But we actually get some really good items for what YouBetterKnowMe is trying to run here, especially with Blade Master. We got some attack speed. We got a Last Whisper. We got a lot of potential here. So YouBetterKnowMe has some options, and at 76 HP is actually looking pretty good right now. Looking at the top, we've got Fluffy at 100. I'm very curious if he's just going to be running something totally different from everyone else, because for the first 2 lobbies, that's exactly what he did. But we're looking at Nomi right now. We have some protectors. We've got that Xayah with the Celestial. We could potentially get the Last Whisper on right here, and right now has the second gloves. All they need is a sword for that IE. Is actually looking pretty good right now.
He's definitely thinking of Shredder. He's not leveled up. And he's got the Xayahs, etc. So I think he's definitely looking at a potential Shredder composition. The only reason that gives it away is because obviously he's still level 4 right now. That's the only thing that's giving away this potential Shredder comp from YouBetterKnowMe. Actually, what's really interesting to me, and I want to reflect on that Fluffy point. Fluffy, before this patch, was a 6 Rebel one trick. He basically just played that. Like, he was the Jinx master. He would pivot everything that he ever played into Rebels. Like, that was just what Fluffy did. To see Fluffy like completely abandon Jinx over these last few games, like, speaks to me that Jinx really must not be in a good spot after the changes. Like, even though the nerf was small, maybe Jinx just isn't good enough anymore. And for Fluffy to ignore Jinx, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think those are the types of storylines that I think can get a little muddied sometimes, is when these players who are so committed to these comps, just like those Omni Yordle players that everyone hated in set 1. I think there are some Omni Rebel players that have shown up in this particular set, and for them not to be using like the stalwart carry Jinx and moving on to other things. Of course, there might be other explanations, but I think you're right, X, in terms of maybe Jinx just isn't where she needs to be right now, and it's going to be better to invest into some higher win percentage carries. But Magarky, love the name, man. Love the name. I can say it 8 million times and it'll never get old. Going to lose, though, and continue at below 60 HP. Again, another round, another group of games, another lobby where a couple people lose an HP lightning quick.
Imagine, I actually was having a little bit of an internal laugh at myself. Imagine I'm in like a week on, I'm now complaining that Jinx isn't good enough. Like, like, I'm just having a little laugh at myself.
That's the gamer mentality, right? It's all about right now, right? It doesn't matter what happened earlier. Yeah. It's all about how I feel now.
Like, if you listen to me on my YouTube or listen to me casting with you last week, where I was just like flaming how Jinx was broken.
Bring me back.
And now I'm like, and now I'm like, Jinx isn't that strong. Maybe that's not good. I'm just laughing at myself for it, because obviously, like, that's so. I mean, viewers are probably thinking, like, dude, oh, you wouldn't shut up about Jinx and how stupid she was last week, but now you like complaining that she's not good enough. Make your mind up.
I know, man. The thing, the flip flop is real right now on Fight Night Rising for Excoundrel, and if you know now I know I just can't trust you. You know what I mean? All those opinions could potentially change if right now someone like Fluffy is having a hard time with Jinx. But I think you bring up a really good point, though, in that sense. It's not that you miss Jinx or that she's good for the meta. It's the fact that maybe she's in a spot that we need to look at her, because every unit needs to find some value, especially when you're a 4-cost unit, in my opinion, right? Even Wukong has been able to find a place amongst the world of 4-cost units in order to find some value. And if Jinx has fallen off a little bit too much, maybe they overcompensated the ability to get her bursted down with the Shacos, with the Irelias, with these with the Syndras, that she maybe needs to be a little bit heftier to stay alive. That's definitely something we can look at. Just like we're looking at EncLase right now, who had a very good lobby last round, going to have sorcerers with a little bit of chrono. One thing that we haven't really seen at all is the Riven. We got the Riven with the blue buff. We also maybe could go into mech with the Annie. We got the Victor as well. This could be a mech sorcerer. What are you feeling? We got some cybernetics as well. But now that he's committing to some of these sorcerers, he could move into mech a little while later, but has the blue buff for the Syndra too.
I think it's mech for sure, with blue buff Syndra being the sort of one of the backline carries. To me, if you're running a GA and a Quicksilver, and you're not running Rabadons, you're not playing Riven. I don't think Riven is bad. I think Riven is okay. She's just not as oppressive as she used to be. She was definitely a dumb unit previously. It's the mech. Like, there's no way that you run Riven without Rabadons, because you're just not going to get big enough shields, and that's the problem that you're going to face. I think he's maybe switching over to go to a Star Guardian just to be able to have some kind of like stronger mid game here.
Yeah, and man, you just saw the Rakan buff right then and there. Rakan does a good amount of damage too. It's not something that you can laugh at. It's just enough, I think, to get a secured kill. Like when you're 1v1ing at round 2, 2, 2, 3. I think that Rakan could definitely bring you that round win with those buffs. But we have seen a couple of our players slam a couple Nikos right now on EncLase, using at least one of them so far. We might be able to see another Nikos get slammed when some of these other mech units come through, but we also have a Fizz, and we've got some Vanguards now for adrehh, who's had a pretty rough day of it so far, but seems to have stabilized in this lobby in particular with our Vanguard Darkstar comp. But this is going to be pretty beefy. But if he goes up against those sorcerers, it's going to be pretty rough for adrehh.
he just doesn't have much damage right now. That's the problem. Like, he's got a 1-star Jin, and that's okay, but he doesn't really have like a huge amount of damage. I expect him to potentially pivot this into the Darkstar Vanguard variant, the one that runs Thresh with the Wukong eventually. That's what I'm expecting him to do here, but obviously it's not entirely clear just based on where he is right now. But the fact that he has a Fizz, I'm probably looking to pair that with the Shaco. The fact that he has 2 Jins on the board, the bench, means he's probably committing to a 4 Darkstar variant or a Jin carry of some sort. So that's my like thought process behind what he's currently offering, and I imagine that's where he's going to go.
That was pretty close, but the Jin gets to stay alive to the very end, help adrehh get another round win. And I think adrehh is just all about that rock, paper, scissors at this point, right? He goes up against auto attackers, he's probably going to be fine. He goes up against the Last Whisper or some sorcerers, it's probably going to be a rough day for adrehh for that round. But now that we're here at the Terror Bursters, I've always considered Terror Bursters like one of those pivotal points where it's time to make some decisions, right? We can't be too flexible. We can't just go around and just keep buying the units that we like and just constantly transition, where I think some people like SunnyLu have gotten kind of trapped into a little bit today. So when we get past Terror Bursters, we definitely will be seeing a little bit more of the story ahead of us. But with adrehh also not using those Nikos, what is he waiting those Nikos for if he is running this Vanguard comp?
That's a really interesting one. I'm guessing because he has a Ginsu's, it's probably a Xerath. Because he has a Ginsu's available, right? He's got a bow and a rod there. So I would hazard a guess that he is potentially looking for a Xerath to slam them on, because he's now got a 2-star Jin. Like, he's looking for a Shaco, but you wouldn't use the Nikos on the okay, he would use the Nikos on the Shaco. That is important.
Yeah,
maybe I'm just undervaluing how important 2-star Shaco is here. But I would have thought it would potentially be for a Xerath if he was going for the full the Darkstar. But nope, it's going to be the Shaco all in with the Rabadon Shaco as well.
Yeah, I believe it's a 200% AP increase with the Rabadons on the tier 2 Shaco. So it's going to be a lot of burst damage, but the hard part is you usually want that to be over some attack damage, since it's 200% over the attack damage. Wait. So we're still looking for something like a Bloodthirster or something.
What's Fluffy doing? Is Fluffy playing like actual unironic Battlecast? I'd love to go and have a look at Fluffy's perspective, because it looks like he's like unironically playing Battlecast.
Yeah, he is. 4 Battlecast, 2 Brawler. Yeah, the Battlecast Blaster is actually something that will carry you through the mid game and then lose you 11 games in a row. There is no in between when it comes to this comp. You want to try to get to 6, I think, as soon as possible. You got to try to roll into it, but you need the Urgot. But at least we've got like arguably perfect items on the Kog'Maw. The other option we have is potentially spatting a blaster. A Battlecast Jinx is actually pretty good in terms of being able to push a little bit more damage, gets a little bit more lifesteal as well, but that's only if you're feeling crazy. But this is definitely something we have not seen before. And right now, this Kog'Maw is absolutely shredding Magarky on the other side of the board. But is it going to be enough? There is a lot of HP on that Nico, but not enough damage. Potentially for Magarky, it's going to be down to this Kog'Maw. He does take the victory. First place, Battlecast, which is going to be where we would expect if someone's committing a Battlecast comp to be. It's all about how you sustain from here on out, though.
Yeah, so obviously I think giantslayer is a really, really good addition, because what giantslayer offers is that it does well versus protectors, who naturally stack up a lot of HP. Like you said, I think he actually has perfect Kog'Maw items here. The question for me with Fluffy is what is his end goal? Like, is he looking to 3-star his stuff? Or is he just looking to get 6 Battlecast on the board and hit and hope in that respect? I imagine that he's looking for an Urgot here, and the Urgot is what he's going to use the 2 Nikos on. The other option would be maybe looking for a 3-star Cog with those Nikos.
And if you're already investing those items on that Kog'Maw, it might be a good idea to get that 3-star Cog. He is only 2 Cogs away from double Nicoing that Kog'Maw for that tier 3. And you're actually seeing the Battlecast trait come in handy on that Kog'Maw right now. Look at that lifesteal, keeping him alive. That's absolutely insane.
How did he not die? Like, how did that Kog'Maw not die? Like, that's insane.
Battlecast trait. That's why.
Every time I play Battlecast, they int me really hard. Like, every time I play Battlecast. Fluffy's making Battlecast look good. That's like a feat in its own right.
You know, it's one of those things too where I don't know if I want to see this. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to Battlecast, it's like, do I want this to be good? Is this good for the game? Is this going to be more like Kazasadin from way back in the day? I don't know. It worries me a little bit. But if anyone's going to do it, I'm thinking Fluffy is a really great person to show us exactly what Battlecast is going to be able to do. The hard part about Battlecast is if you choose to go out of it, I think it's also kind of difficult once you commit to come out. You know what I mean? You can maybe go to Jinx Brawlers. You can maybe go to some other options. But the thing about Battlecast is their synergies are so just kind of everywhere, right? Like the Battlecast units don't work together themselves outside of, I think, the cast and the Kog'Maw being able to really use that trait.
What I would say is it's a mix of two things. The items that you have to pick up for Battlecast really don't flex into many other compositions. You could maybe, with a static shiv and a red buff, maybe go into Cybers, but you'd have to have an Echo to make it work. Otherwise, it would obviously be a potential Jinx, but honestly, static shiv is really bad on Jinx. So the thing is, when you commit to a red buff, like now, red buff used to be like absolutely G in the early game. You'd be like, yes, red buff, like this is my life, I love it. Now with red buff, you're like, oh god, I have to go blasters, and blasters suck. So that's the problem. That's the problem. If you commit a red buff super early on, like yes, it's still good in the mid game, but you have to have a comp that it kind of boxes you into kind of subpar comps right now. But I'm definitely interested to see how this Battlecast works out and whether it is going to be just like a double slam.
He won another round. He won another round even without the Urgot. He's on fire. Again, Battlecast, Mort said in the introduction of Battlecast, this is an early game trait. This will fall off. So we're getting to the point where it usually does start falling off. It's after this next NPC round where Battlecast, in my opinion, starts really struggling. As Stylet now looking at some options himself. He's got the Shaco, doesn't have the best Shaco items in the world. Definitely wants a little bit more AD. Bloodthirster is such a good item on the Shaco. One of the few units that can really use that item to the best of its ability. But we got a little bit of a blender going on, mostly with the Dark Stars, but a little bit of everything. We got a little bit of defense from the magic. We got a little bit of defense from that physical. We got a little bit of lifesteal as well.
Yeah, these items are all over the place for this comp. Like, I guess he was hoping to do something with that tier, realized that he just didn't hit the rest of the items that he needed, couldn't make blue buff, and now he's like, ah, god, where do I go from here? Next Nomi has got like perfect shredder though. Like he's got a really, really insane shredder right now. He like just with the items that he's got on his Xayah, you just see it, the guy who just beat Style here. So that's the guy that I'm looking to sort of be in a good top 3 spot. And that's so good for next Nomi because, you know, if Nomi gets another top 3, we're looking at maybe a back-to-back winner of the fight.
Yeah, that's true. And that, you know, it's so funny actually. It's very common for someone to win 2 times in a row. We've had a lot of people win 2 times in a row, but that third run back has always been really, really hard for people. So it's kind of like the Triple Crown, as you better know me, trying to get that second jewel of that Triple Crown, and uses, I think, his Nico's on the Xayah in the end to get to that tier 3 Xayah, because I don't see the Nico's on his bench anymore. And once again, this comp is going to lose HP and then take HP a little bit later, and that's why you're sitting at 36. But these are HP totals that we would have never seen this many people have before Kayn, even before the stage 5 carousel, to have 4 people under 40 HP at this point in time. Again, these games are being really quick, but I just can't help but look at anything other than Fluffy's portrait on fire right now, because it is nutty to me that he's been able to do something that I've been trying to do literally since the beginning of Battlecast, and he's doing it successfully here.
It's itemization. Battlecast is so itemization dependent, and like we said, he has got the perfect Kog'Maw items. What I also think is maybe overlooked a little bit from the way that we're approaching Fluffy is that actually he's running a Jarvan, and I think Jarvan probably increases the overall power level of Battlecast because it's all about how quickly you can attack and how many instances of damage you can get off. So I think actually it's also like a mix of a lot of things in the current patch, maybe making Battlecast slightly better than we thought. He does just get annihilated by next Nomi. He literally just got absolutely flattened by next Nomi here.
Yeah, 17 HP I think is what he lost in that round. So just in that round, because of that Shredder comp, the whole lobby gets a lot tighter, and this is already a really important lobby for a lot of these players like TheEnclase, like Nomi, like Fluffy, who need the top 3 right now because they're all tied in the standings or within 1 or 2 points of each other. As SunnyLu, I think it's cosplaying as the everyman for this lobby, unfortunately. Once again, does find that tier 3 TF, has good items on the TF, unfortunately not as strong as the carry as old Candyland TF used to be, but how are we feeling here? It's also getting a little bit of attack speed from that Karma. SunnyLu might be on his last round.
I think he's out. I just like it's another one of those situations for SunnyLu where he didn't really have a clear direction with the composition. And yeah, TF is good. Like this 3-star TF might buy him a few rounds, but with 3 HP, like all it takes is one bad round. He's actually just going to go out here. Like 3-star, like you said, 3-star TF is just not good enough anymore. And yeah, SunnyLu, unfortunately, he's out.
All right, and we're looking over at Magarky right now, and does invest the Nikos. I think he used it on Shaco earlier, and then must have used the second one on Echo.
What on earth is he playing? It's like Protector Infiltrator. Infiltrator
Our
Janna.
Protector's just that good, where you just get the 4 and then just put whatever you want after. Remember, old Jinx Brawlers used to be that way, where you just got your 6 Brawlers and you just added the Jinx, right? A little while later, is that kind of similar here, where it's just the 4 Protectors with other kinds of units and getting a little bit of a blender with the Infiltrators, with the Celestial, with the Dark Star.
Protector's just good frontline. That's why I like it. That's why I wanted Protectors to be from the very start. Like the reason. Or what we had with Protectors previously was that they were kind of really niche and only worked in certain comps. I think to really make the game healthy, like having three separate groups of units that can act as a frontline is really healthy, because it means you don't just have to go Brawler or Vanguard to be in a good spot. So that's what I wanted Protectors to be. I wanted them to be another frontline option, but the only issue with them right now is that they are potentially a little bit too strong, and that's why everybody's running them as a front line.
All right, now let's look over at Fluffy, who has, I believe, lost almost half of his HP in 2 or 3 rounds. And we said, like, this is gonna be where the Battlecast is gonna start just really losing. And it's so crazy how a comp, almost, I feel like every time I see it, literally is just a flat edge. There is no slight like stalling. There is no tourniquet to kind of stem the bleeding. It's just you lose really hard or you win really hard. It's feast or famine, just like old Blade Masters used to be, but I think even riskier when it comes to these Battlecasts, because he hasn't even gotten into that Urgot. The last thing you want is to lose out on Nicoverse without ever using your Nico's help.
I'm a little bit confused. He chose, and there's the Urgot.
Thank God.
Just doesn't get punished. He chose to intentionally not pick up the Urgot. It had a Ginsu's on it, obviously, which is not an ideal unit, but he chose to like value the Zephyr over the Urgot from that carousel. But he gets rewarded by getting an Urgot in this scenario. Like I think I'd be going 6 Battlecast here. Like I actually would be going 6 Battlecast.
Unironically, going 6 Battlecast. Only needs to use one of the Nikos for the Urgot. And Urgot 2 right now is so strong, because Urgot 1 is pretty much just a Caitlyn ult, but Urgot 2 replenishes his mana after kill so much quicker now. You're actually going to potentially get more eats from the Urgot than you previously did, as they wanted Urgot 2 to be the one that you invested into. With the Bloodthirster 2, he's going to be pretty nice and easy, even though he's going to get turned into a nice cute little critter. He's going to win in at the end. Maybe just 5 Battlecasts is all you need. Maybe it's just the Urgot with the Protector protection. But yeah, Fluffy doing something that I don't think we've ever seen in Fight Night.
I mean, Urgot obviously had changes. We haven't even touched on them, but Urgot obviously had changes on the last update, where they changed his ultimate. They, like you said, they changed the wind up time. They made it so that 2-star Urgot is really the unit that you need to have him act as a carry. He no longer targets the unit furthest in his attack range. He targets the unit furthest away from him in general, but you can block the Urgot grinder with another unit in front of him. But he just managed to snipe out the Jhin there, so that gave him the win. Like, that was really good from Fluffy. We're looking at Leduc, who we haven't really had the chance to kind of get too much on this time round, but he's running Blade Master Thresh. I'm not sure about it, Leduc. I'm not sure about it, my friend.
Hey, he got 2 extra units on the board just so they could get killed themselves. And we also have a mech player in EncLase. We thought that might be the direction that he would be going. It seems like it took him a while to finally actually get here. Does have the units available, but look how close this entire lobby is. We had Magarky and SunnyLu get taken out in 7th and 8th place, but everyone else, this is literally kind of like a matchup dependent lobby at this point. It's rock, paper, scissors. If you get a bad matchup, you're out of here. You just got to maybe get 1 or 2 rounds to be a little lucky to get into that top 4. But if you're Leduc, if you're EncLase, EncLase probably has 2 more rounds, but we're hitting max 3 losses for any one of these players now, which is the closest lobby we've had so far today.
Very close, like you said. Like I think Fluffy, like on a good fight, might have 3 lives left, but realistically, you're looking between 1 and 2 for every single player. Like the whole lobby is going to fall apart in like the next 3 or 4 rounds, and that's gonna be it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a world where we don't even make it to carousel based off of us. Crazy shenanigans. We probably will, but just depending on how strong some of these comps are and how brutally some of them get beat another comp, they are going to start dropping like flies. There's no doubt about it. And it's so crazy too, because this is one of those games that actually, in terms of the amount of players we have at 6-1, we have more. So maybe the players are getting a little bit more used to this style, this kind of format, this new patch, as everything seems to have gotten a lot closer on this particular lobby. Is now adrehhh with his 4 dark stars. Chum the Waters in the backline is going to target the Ash, but you're going to want to get a little bit more value. The Xin Zhao is in the backline, and eventually KnowMe is going to take over. 12 HP remaining for adrehhh, and you're seeing him drop right now as Leduc will fall.
Leduc is out. It's like we're going to see EncLase go so low as well to Fluffy. My goodness, like you said, it's last chance saloon for a lot of these players. Now we've got 3 on sub 10 HP, and the rest of them probably looking at 1 or 2 lives if they are lucky. So, oh, this is so close.
This is exactly what we do this for, right? Like, this is TFT, and with the tiebreaker rules, it's gonna be super fair now too. There was a little bit of extra drama based off of dying first versus not, but now with the new tiebreaker thing, is we're gonna see exactly where you belong in this lobby based off of where you stand on this comp. So adrehhh on EncLase, one of them will most likely be eliminated on this round. KnowMe is going to be having a blue buff Urgot in the back line, but he takes so long to eat, isn't even going to get more than 2 units. The rest of the units are going to do it for him, as EncLase does fall in 4th place. Will adrehhh also fall? Looks like he will. Oh, maybe not with this Jhin one-shotting everyone on the other side. And with the Azel nerfs, we're seeing it right now. We're going to see how strong this Karma can be if he gets to the ultimate. It does actually take him down. And if that doesn't show you how strong Karma is right now, nothing will.
That's the Thresh. I think the Thresh pulled in the Aurelion Soul there. That Aurelion Soul MVP'd mana drain on that Shaco. Next KnowMe is top 3, by the way. Next KnowMe and Fluffy are top 3. Both of them were at the 14 point mark, if I remember correctly. So both of them are looking like they're serious contenders for not only Fight Night winner, but also top 3 potential. And what a story for Next KnowMe, a guy who constantly says, oh, these guys are better than me. I don't know if I'm good enough. He's quite clearly good enough. Quite clearly.
It could not be more clear, honestly, from my perspective when it comes to KnowMe, that he needs to be a little bit more confident coming in here and really just come up and say, you know, I belong. This is where I belong, because you've top 3'd in every lobby, which in general, for any of us to top 3 in 3 straight lobbies on ladder, let alone in tournament play, is super hard to do. And he was able to do just that. As he eliminates another player, as before we get to carousel, we do end up with a 1v1. It is going to be down to KnowMe and Fluffy. This is actually a huge deal too, going into the 4th lobby, because whoever wins this against both of these two in the 4th lobby, in order to win the whole of Fight Night, is just finish in front of the other person, right? That's the first step for lobby 4. So this is actually a huge deal, huge ramifications in terms of Fight Night. Where will this go? Are we going to get shocked by not even a 6 Battlecast comp, a 5 Battlecast comp with a tier 2 Urgot? Or is KnowMe going to be able to win it out with Shredder, which has a pretty high win percentage today?
Shredder has been doing very well. If this is the the evidence that you needed to get Shredder back on the ladder and start grinding out those games, it's quite clear that Shredder is in a great place. You do need the itemization for it, quite clearly. You need to have the Last Whisper Infinity Edge combo, but I don't know. I think Battlecast is, I mean, it's the double Zephyr as well. I think Battlecast is probably pretty good in this situation.
Battlecast Gnar as well. He got the Battlecast spat. So this is a 6 Battlecast composition.
Oh, wow.
And with just the healing and with everything that goes along with the extra damage, the extra healing, not even close against the Shredder comp. Absolutely insane. We are going to get one more round. But this Battlecast comp looked unbeatable in that round. But hey, it is TFT. Sometimes just switching who's in each corner will take the victory away. But it looks like it's going to be pretty hard. I actually think Battlecast Spat is the way to make this team work in the late game, because the weakest Battlecast unit, in my eyes, is Nocturne. That thing sucks in the late game. So I actually think like the Battlecast Spat, especially on a brawler like Gnar, that is kind of the way to go. He's going to soak damage, and obviously he's going to be a really beefy unit when he ultimates as well. I think this might be it. This might be the way to make Battlecast work in the late game. Fluffy is on fire right now. Is this going to be the first ever Battlecast lobby win in Fight Night Rising? The Shredder in the backline is trying their best, does get the Urgot away, and Fluffy might actually have one more loss if we get there, but this Gnar is absolutely crushing it into the back line. Look at this Gnar go! One shot's the last unit. Fluffy gets the victory with a 6 Battlecast team comp, setting himself up for a day win for Fight Night Rising for this 4th lobby. Again, super excited to see these standings going into the last lobby of the day, but so different from last week when every lobby felt like was just Jinx winning. We got a Battlecast win. We got Shredder winning. Man, this is exactly where I want TFT to be going. I've had a great time so far, and seeing Battlecast win like that is terrifying, but also pretty exciting.
I'm really happy that this is the way that obviously there are some comps that are cropping up time and time again, but you always get that in TFT. There are always comps coming through. Oh, Fluffy has got a 2-point lead on YouBetterKnowMe. He just needs to place like 2 places or a place ahead of him in most scenarios, and he's like in a great spot for first place. He just needs to not have an awful game. Like, as long as he's getting like what I think. Let's say worst case scenario is he would like YouBetterKnowMe would have to get first, and he would have to get what, second for them to tie. So he just needs to make sure he's placing ahead of YouBetterKnowMe in most circumstances. TheEnclase is very close, of course, but I think realistically the goal for Fluffy here is place above YouBetterKnowMe, and you're in a good spot for at least top 3.
Yeah, and I think like this is the other thing about like last lobbies that I love so much is we have turned into kind of lobbies within lobbies, right? We've got the duo of Fluffy and YouBetterKnowMe who are kind of doing their own thing, right? Like they are going to be attacking each other, and that kind of interaction within the next lobby, which is the next 3 members who are facing off for that 3rd spot, right, are doing their own thing, and then everyone else is playing spoilers. So everyone still has the capability to be involved, because if I'm SunnyLu right now and I eliminate like Fluffy in 8th place, that's honestly even better than a win, like for me sometimes, right? Sunny, to be that kind of spoiler.
Sunny wouldn't do it to the boy. You know, Sunny wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it to Fluffy. I know those guys. There's no way that Sunny would do that to Fluffy. I'm just saying. I don't think that happens. But I think you're right. Like obviously there's always the chance for that. I think what you're gonna see is it's the Fluffy YouBetterKnowMe race for the first place, with TheEnclase having a good outside shot. But TheEnclase is somewhere stuck between defending his 3rd spot and trying to go for a first place finish. So he's somewhere in between. And then the guys that are below TheEnclase, they're the guys that are looking to get like a top 2 finish to try and get into the 3rd spot to make sure they're back next week.
All right, so we get a second Nicoverse for today. So that's actually the first time we've ever had a double Galaxy on Fight Night, at least since I've been here. So first times for everything, and that's going to be scary because who won the last Nicoverse Galaxy? Oh yeah, Fluffy with 6 Battlecasts, who lucked into a Battlecast spat on the last NPC round. And Battlecast Gnar is something that I just like have to do now, just to do it. Like it's in my system, and like my shoulders are tingling, right? That I won't get that feeling out until I get Battlecast Gnar. But Fluffy, he's typing in the chat as well, a little bit of friendly banter about Nicoverse here.
Oh god, I I don't know how you feel about Nicoverse. I know pros aren't like the biggest fan of Nicoverse, because it's like who hits the unit first.
Yeah,
gets like the power spike, right? But I don't know. I'm really glad they removed Little Legends. That's all I'm saying. I'm so glad. I like to do power rankings of galaxies, by the way.
Yeah.
So like my S tier is Treasure Trove. Like Treasure Trove is legit insane. Really fun galaxy. It doesn't really detriment anybody. It's fair. It doesn't detriment anybody. I used to like Medium Legends a little bit, but just because I was really bad at the game and it always made me feel like okay. But I also understand that it was like not as punishing. Little Legends is like F tier, like below F tier. Nico versus someone like D tier. Binary Star is kind of like C tier. It's kind of air. Every game I've played on Dwarf Planet I've hated, so that's like a terrible universe as well.
The Set 1 universe is what I'm calling it.
What else? What are the universes?
There's Trade Sector.
Oh, I love it. S tier because it completely changes the way the game's played.
Yeah. So I would say my two favorite are definitely Treasure Trove and Trade Sector. Treasure Trove because, in my opinion, I think we kind of talked about it. I think is actually maybe even more fair than the regular galaxy, since you get an orb in every NPC round, and it is kind of like an even footing galaxy. Same thing with Trade Sector, but even footing in terms of instead of like a cross country race, Trade Sector reminds me of like a 200-meter dash instead, which is just the tempo is faster. It feels different and it feels a little bit more into the nitty gritty. And also, I like Nico's verse, maybe not as much now since Vayne got nerfed and Cass got nerfed from when you would get one of those two in an orb and then just Nico both of them. You are going to be holding on or not. You're going to be Nicoing your Master Yi's if you're Ladakh.
I mean, do it. Just do it. Like Master Yi is like, I don't know if you've kind of watched or seen like Korean players. They love Master Yi. Like they actually just like slamming Master Yi in the early game. But the problem is that Duck's gonna have, you can see him laughing. The problem that Duck's gonna have now is that he's kind of has to go Yi. Like he kind of just has to go Yi from this point. Like you can't double Nico a Yi and then not go Yi. So if he doesn't get the items or it doesn't work out for him, that's it. Like that's your game. You're Yi now. That is it.
All right. So there's gonna be no surprises at all. When it comes to this Master Yi, we're probably going to get a couple Blade Masters as well. Maybe you could do like a Yi Rebels. I don't know if you're feeling extra special, but you're right. You've shown your hand. You're pretty much playing poker with giving your opponents all of the information that you have as well.
Mm-hmm. Don't think it's a bad thing. I think Yi's still good. I actually still think the 6 Blade Master composition is pretty strong. But it is very item dependent. One thing I was playing today, and I saw someone try and play this composition, the Master Yi 6 Blade Master comp in Binary Star, and I was like, dude, no. Master Yi is like a 3-item carry. You cannot play this on Binary Star. You're either sacrificing your QSS, which is bad, or you're sacrificing your Rapid Fire or Ginsu's, which is also bad. Mm-hmm. So, like that's not a comp you can play on.
There are just some units who have to have 3 items to carry, right? There are of course those that can function with 2, like Old Vayne with the Last Whisper IE, or really any of the Last Whisper IE carries. But there are some units, like you said, like Yi, that have to have 3 items if you are going to have them be the carry. But now SunnyLu in a familiar spot at 86 HP, and we see everyone leveling up to 4 passively for this round. Another one of those kind of like mid-maxy type things. You'll actually see a lot of players wait until the very last second to level if they are going to level, just so other players don't react in time. So you maybe get that level advantage for at least one of the rounds. Helps you get some of that interest if you're trying to win streak. But right now we should have most, other than the Master Yi on the Nikos, most of the Nikos still on the board. We're still developing some items and comps. But if you are kind of in a position where you're like 7th and 8th place right now, you get to do a little something silly. If you got to run, in your opinion, a silly comp that you think works, what would you do in this situation?
That's really what for what Sunny's got right now.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that he's got the Shaco, right? So I don't think there are many infiltrator compositions that work outside of Darkstar Shaco. I have heard some people talking about Mech Infiltrator, but honestly, from his position, it just looks like he's going to have to try and play for a Darkstar. If he's keeping the Shaco and not selling it for economy, it's not exactly a good unit outside of 4 Darkstar. So I think I'm probably looking towards a potential Darkstar avenue.
Yeah, I mean, or if you're looking at that last game, everyone should just be playing Battlecast now, right? Obviously, it's the top tier comp.
Battlecast is one of those comps, right? Like, I feel like Fluffy made it look really good, but I think one of the things that you have to get right with Battlecast is like you have to have those items at stage 3 with a 2-star Cogmore, or your Battlecast just ain't gonna work. So like it's super item dependent, and I think it's quite 2-star dependent for the Cogmore. That's what I'd be kind of keeping my eye on if I'm playing Battlecast. If I can 2-star my stuff early on, great, do it. It's got a great mid game, and then as you see with Urgot in the late game, getting to level 9, throwing in a Thresh added to any mid game or early game comp is going to turn it into a good late game contender, because Thresh is just so strong. So I just think like that was just a game where Fluffy had an incredible mid game,
Yeah, well, and I also think the lobby kind of was a little friendly towards that particular kind of comp too. And maybe if we saw some more bursty type of damage, maybe if the Blade Masters target the Urgot a little bit sooner, Fluffy wouldn't have found that success. But he's going to be solely responsible for me losing a couple hundred LP after this cast, because that's all I'm going to play, because I am hard-headed, Excoundrel, and I'm not going to listen to you, even though I know I'm going to lose that LP. Magarky is going to take the victory there. Again, Nico's both sides still available. Has the Chronos. It's something that, again, that we've always known as an early game comp, hasn't been able to find itself in the late game stages just yet, outside of the Wukong Thresh combo that you will see. But as this lobby kind of starts breaking out, remember, we want the viewers to understand that this is a couple lobbies in one. We've got the top 2, which is Nomi and Fluffy, who Fluffy just needs to try to finish. Like, goal number 1 for Fluffy is finish ahead of Nomi. Goal number 1 for Nomi is finish ahead of Fluffy. The other stuff will kind of happen after that, but that should be their main priority. The other ones are facing off for third place, as we've got 3 players in the running for this third spot, and it is going to come down to the wire most likely, and it's going to be potentially like round based, right? It's going to come down to that tiebreaker, going to come down to how much HP you lose in a specific round to see if you even come back next week. The stakes, in my opinion, haven't been higher at this stage since I've been casting Fight Night Rising. So I'm so happy that I can share this with you, Excoundrel, and see who will end up being the lobby winner here, which in my opinion is going to be a little extra impressive because it's also on a new patch.
I think for me, like I haven't been too surprised by the the generic top 4 comps that we've seen so far. But I think we've been like seeing a lot of Darkstar. We've seen a decent amount of Sorcerer, a couple of Cybernetic here and there. But what I have been surprised by is the ability of certain comps to top 1. That's kind of what's been the surprising thing for me. I've not been surprised by the strong comps that we've seen, but I've been surprised by the fact that in a competitive lobby we've seen certain other comps like top 1, and that's been really fun for me to see. The Battlecast win for Fluffy was definitely a highlight. The 4 Sniper getting top 3 was definitely a highlight. But yeah, this has been so much healthier than last week. Like, even
I totally agree.
You could probably just hear it in the way that we're casting about the game. It just feels much more fun than saying, I wonder who hits Jinx first.
Like for the 30th different way. You know what I mean? Like how many times can we say Jinx Rebel is the best way to go? I mean, you're totally right. And I think just looking at where we are, the fact that Shredder and Battlecast both got a lobby win today, right? When was the last time we saw Shredder get a lobby win? Space Jam is going to be next, for all we know, coming up on the next lobby. But this was actually something that I did kind of notice coming in, that I wasn't like I still don't know if I could commit to this, but I have definitely seen some one-off comps where people are countering lobbies like Fluffy do really, really well in terms of that Battlecast comp in 9 out of 10 lobbies is probably going to, top 8 you, right? But in that lobby, maybe we found that 10 out of 10, and Fluffy's just a good enough player to understand that we were in that 10 out of 10 lobby. But in terms of, there was a Space Pirate Blaster comp that won with 89 HP in one of my lobbies yesterday. So like, it's just, again, we know these comps, but some of these one-off comps might be able to just take that top 1, surprisingly, just like that Battlecast comp. I don't think that Battlecast comp's the only one of those kind of hidden top 1s that we might be able to see, maybe even today at the end of this lobby, or by the time, we get to next week.
The Space Pirate is so meme, dude. Like if the Space Pirate is one of those comps that if you just like run away with the mid game and then you hit a gangplank, you're probably going to top 1 just through pure item advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing about Space Pirates. It's just like it's it's a bit of a meme comp, but if you're able to have a really strong mid game, it really allows you, and you're able to invest your gold into experience, so you find the gangplank, it can be really rewarding. But otherwise, it's just like a huge meme.
Well, sometimes cheese is sometimes cheese works out. Sometimes cheese is tasty, but most of the
Sometimes.
time it's just gonna stink. It's gonna stink up the place, and 9 times out of 10 you'll get there. It's funny that we'll just outweigh that 10 out of 10. Like, I swear it works. See, it's because of Fluffy. But in reality, it's not going to be that way. As Enclase, who actually really needs to not be in this current position right now, is sitting in 7th place. He is in competition for that 3rd place to get a 3rd week in a row back here in EU Fight Night. And we are probably going to have a couple of our participants here for all 4 weeks of EU Fight Night. And right now, Nomi definitely looking like he's going to be potentially our kind of part of our regular cast of characters when it comes
Oh
to this.
yeah.
As Enclase loses another round, this is actually a really big deal for Enclase based off where he is on the standings.
If Nomi wins 2 fight nights in a row, and given his current position in this game, given the point standings that he's at, I would be thoroughly impressed. I know we had sort of a very long streak of gunmay just doing really well previously, but if Nomi to win comes in as like he came in, I believe, as a last minute replacement last week.
Yeah.
He probably wasn't even like hugely prepared to play. He came in, won the lobby, and is coming to the 2nd week on a new patch, on a new meta, and is now really up in the air and contending for that 1st spot with his point total right now. I would love to see him on the interview desk again, because it's been just such a lovely story to have him back having like success two weeks in a row,
100% agree. And like sometimes you kind of luck into certain metas that just speak to you, right? Like during that Ranger meta, it just made sense to me for some reason. Everything about the game just made more sense to me. And maybe this is kind of one of those metas that just makes a lot of sense for Nomi, because it's not like he's been Omni with his tracks either. He's done Shredder. I believe he did Darkstar on another lobby, and he's been able to top 4 every lobby so far. And I think the only other person who's done that is Fluffy. And that's why they're in the top 2 right now and battling it out to see who will win the lobby as a whole. It is between those 2 players, especially with Enclase struggling a little bit. It might be hard for them to try to compete to get into the top 2. But right now, things are still pretty tight. As YouBetterKnowMe on fire. Again, the bigger thing about being on fire in the early game here is more so because of the economy that you're going to get. But in the late game, we'll definitely check back in with him and his comp, because he's already got all 3 Astros. So he's probably got Bard, yeah. And so he's going to get an XP advantage now. He's setting himself up really good to be on a win streak with an Astro kind of package right now. Is actually quite an awesome thing to be a part of, because the whole point about Bard is that you're losing damage, you're losing a whole ultimate, but he's using that XP to get ahead on that XP, and he's on a win streak, 5-game win streak with the Bard.
Yeah, and actually, if you're on a win streak with the Bard, like, that's unbelievably good. Like, obviously, I think what I would say is this is the one comp where you can actually make that work. So he looks like he's playing, given that he's combining Vanguards, it does look like he's going down a Vanguard Mystic build path. This is probably the one comp that you can actually... Oh, wait a second. He's thinking about Teemo. Oh, he actually just Nico'd the Bard. So he's really going in. He's going in because obviously, look at him. He's rolled down at 6. Like that's something that we haven't really... I don't know if you touched on that. I might have zoned out if you did, but he rolled down at 6. His economy is in the bin right now. He needs this Bard to make up for the economy loss that he's going to suffer because of rolling down at 6 in this situation. I would even be tempted, if I were him, to potentially look at Nicoing my Cassiopeia as well, just to maintain like some sort of health advantage, because he's especially if he wants to maintain this win streak, which looks like he might not even be able to. He might actually be going out of his win streak here. That's devastating for Nomi at this situation, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he invested so much to continue that win streak, right? And it's just like losing it all the next day in the stock market. Is you have all of these expectations, and then all of a sudden they don't happen. But the important thing when it comes to this Bard is he was already exceeding expectations, right? So now we're kind of leveling off in terms of maybe my lead isn't as hardcore as it was, because he dropped from 90 to 83. He's still in at 2nd place. And I agree with you. I actually think Nicoing the Cass here, I think committing to a Vanguard Mystic comp might be a good idea here. It's something that we actually haven't seen. And with someone who you're kind of facing off against Fluffy, and maybe winning the lobby isn't necessarily the #1 priority, where the #1 priority is finishing ahead of Fluffy, I'm interested to see if Fluffy's maybe running like an attack damage-based like Vayne or Cyber comp or something that Nomi is just countering
No,
himself
no,
and
no.
try to do it.
He's against Fluffy right now, and
Oh, it's
Fluffy's
super
running.
pixelated.
So Fluffy's running Jin with Infinity Edge Last Whisper, and he has got the Darkstar build pretty much already online. Fluffy's in like an insane spot for this game right now.
Whew, man. Insane. I wish I could be that consistent, man. That's just one of the things, just like in my life, consistency is just one of those things. And these players to be able to come to a new patch and also be so good just by being good players and understanding the ins and outs of a game like this is so very impressive, especially multi-game people like Fluffy who are able to find that kind of success in multiple worlds. Wolfie comes to mind again from the Pokemon world, who's been in Fight Night. Just people who can come in from other games and be successeful, where TFT seems to have a lot of those people, is just so impressive to me. Almost as impressive as this economy that Fluffy has, and he's already at 7s, and he already has that Urgot, man. It's gonna be
finds an Urgot, dude.
Jesus Christ.
I think he's looking for the Teemo. He's got the blue buff, right? So I think he's potentially looking for the Teemo in this scenario. Maybe we're actually going to see him run a similar comp to the way he ran previously, with the sort of the sniper Astro side of things here.
And it's cool to see the Teemo coming back, especially with the blue buff. It was a little overtuned when he first came out of the Scouts Club, but now he has found himself in a much better place, but has to have that blue buff in order to make him any sort of effective, as Nomi has dropped below Fluffy right now. Definitely take note of that on that right-hand screen, where Fluffy and Nomi are in comparison to everyone else. Gotta love the fact that SunnyLu is on fire. You don't want someone to kind of bomb out 4 times in a row, and so SunnyLu finding some good success, and Fluffy also, he's going to be hot in here as well, as his portrait on fire as well.
You just beat Sunny there. So Fluffy actually just stopped that. He stopped it from going on, so he's kind of cut the win streak out here. We're actually going to follow Sunny for a bit, as it looks. He's actually going for Darkstar as well. So he's not found the Jin, but he has got a very strong looking Shaco, and Shaco's still an incredibly good mid-game carry.
We actually haven't seen Shaco pop off since I think that first lobby, but we do have like almost perfect items for that Shaco. Hand of Justice, anything with lifesteal for Shaco is really good, because when he ults, it is a % based increase with that auto attack based on the auto attack. So with the sword from the GA, with the sword from the Bloodthirster, and the Hand of Justice potentially providing you even more damage, it's going to be a while. So if you see the Shaco get low, it could just be a debate in the end. You're going to see him pop right up after that ult. And we saw it happen right there.
All right, so if Fluffy continues this, he like in the mid game, he's looking like a really, really good shoe-in for a potential winner of this week, which would be such an incredible story for him as well, because he's kind of like known. He was known as like a rebel one trick, a jinx one trick to an extent for a very long time. To actually come out of that and break free of those reigns one day after the patch where jinx kind of gets thrown out of the meta, that's a huge deal for Fluffy. And it's also shown how much like how kind of like skilled he is as an overall player as well. I think if you've been following his stream, he's been consistently like rank 1 Europe, rank 5 Europe. You know, he's really been placing very well. Or, you know, you may be aware of right now in TFT, there's something called the meta snapshots going on, where essentially they take your place in the ladder, and that's going to give you qualifying points for I believe like the TFT Worlds competition or something along those lines anyway. And so he's constantly been looking to place really high in the top 5. He's been one of the most consistent rank 1 players in Europe over the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. He's been absolutely killing it recently. So for him to then continue that strength onto a Fight Night broadcast and potentially come out in top 1, that's a really good result for Fluffy.
This Teemo is destroying them in the back line right now. Goodness gracious. And just to kind of piggyback off of you, when I think of TFT players, like when I think of someone like Crowan, I will think of Fluffy in terms of people who I really respect in terms of the community when it comes to TFT. The biggest kinds of brains, theory crafters, the set kind of, they set the standard when it comes to TFT, and Fluffy definitely a part of that upper echelon, in my opinion. And I don't really think it's a tough opinion to agree with. He's been around the whole time, and he's been creating content, and he's been streaming, and it's so great to see him success and coming back to Fight Night Rising. And on top of the leaderboard, but look who's right behind him. It's Nomi. Like, this could not write itself, I think, in a better way.
We've scripted it. It's scripted.
Yeah,
It's
I know,
100%
seriously. This is
scripted.
great.
Yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic. Nuts. Go for it.
I was just going to say, this is that you literally said the words that I was going to say. This is actually nuts. It's crazy.
So remember, Leduc did use both of his Nikos on that Master Yi. Unfortunately for him, he's closer to a Z3 than he is a Yi 3, because he's another kind of character that you need 3 items, but also you need him to be tier 3. The RFC so good on Master Yi, though, once he starts getting going, especially after that first initial ult, which gives him that true damage. And with the RFC, he's going to have a ton more range to be safe. You can actually corner the Yi in this situation, which is exactly what Leduc is doing. But you want that tier 3 Yi no matter what in this situation. And when you invest the Nikos to have only found 1 extra Yi after that, that's a feels bad.
Like I said, doing it on the Yi boxes him in, and if he doesn't get favorable items and favorable rolls, and let's be completely honest, Giant Slayer is a little suboptimal for Yi. Yeah, he's only found 1 extra Yi, like you said. Like, this is not a good spot for
And he's losing.
I understand that. I feel like he was just trying something out, trying something different. I don't think in many scenarios, especially if you're actually looking to contest for a top 3 spot, that you'd be double Nicoing a Yi on your final competitive game. But it was an experiment that hasn't really sort of excelled this time round.
Yeah, the hypothesis did not come true for Leduc when it came to this experiment. Unfortunately, the results are going to maybe mean, 6th, 7th, or 8th place. Again, this lobby is top heavy, but it's tied. It is literally tied between Fluffy and Nomi right now. That is, I cannot reiterate enough how crazy this is. We'll definitely check in on them more during the late game, because I'm assuming they'll both be around, and just check into our 3rd place crew, who is like TheEnclase and Magarky as well. But we're going to keep looking at Leduc. This Yi should be a lot stronger right now, to be completely honest with you. And rushing that Giant Slayer, the thing is, since you're still losing these rounds, it might have just been better to keep the Giant Slayer off. Of course, you don't know you're going to lose all of those rounds afterward. He's already got 6 Blade Masters, but I think holding off on that Giant Slayer might have been a better option, and waiting for this particular NPC round to commit to your items, because you lost anyway.
Yeah, the Yi experiment definitely did not go the way that he would have wanted. It looks like adrehhh beat next Nomi. Fluffy just about edging out at the top. He's playing the 4 sniper variant, I think, with the Teemo with the blue buff.
That was a 3rd place the last time Fluffy played that, so we haven't seen that compete towards that top 1. But if he gets 3rd and Nomi gets 4th, then that's all that will matter in the end. Oh man, I'm getting chills. This is such good stuff. Leduc is sitting at 32 HP. Excoundrel, what is kind of your macro picture right now? What are we looking
at? So I think obviously we're keeping our eyes on Fluffy and next Nomi. They're the guys that are obviously competing for the first spot. I'm looking at TheEnclase. Like, he is someone that I think was at 20 points. So I'm keeping an eye on him at 36 HP. He's obviously very, very far away from Fluffy and next Nomi, but obviously it's worth keeping an eye on the build that he's going. Again, this is a very uncontested build. We don't see this very often because of the Jinx nerfs, but it is Nico verse. 1 more Aurelion Soul, and you've got a 2-star Aurelion Soul there. This is a build that still, I think, does have legs and shouldn't be completely counted out every time that you see it sort of thrown down the drain. But it's definitely not where it used to be. That's what I'll say.
I mean, there are 3 units on the board right now that just got nerfed with Asol, Jinx. Oh, 4 with Vi as well. So you got Ezreal, Vi, Jinx, and Asol all getting nerfed in the end. And I love what they're trying to do with Ezreal in terms of that utility style carry, but it doesn't seem like TheEnclase is going to be doing anything more with it, as we got some tier 3 Blade Masters on the other side of the board. I mean, crazy comps, things that we haven't seen so far. We actually haven't seen a ton of tier 3 units in general, especially because a lot of these guys are dying so quickly during these lobbies, and to see these tier 3 Yasuos, the Master Yis being so competitive across a couple different comps, TheEnclase needs this tier 2 Asol to pop off, because the tier 1 Asol did get a nerf. The mana drain isn't as much. I believe it's doing a little less damage as well. Some people are starting to build Aesol as a tank and using it as kind of like a mana drain unit instead of someone who's actually going to be doing some killing. I think Enclase has some potential, does find the Aesol 2, puts the blue buff on him just to get that mana drain going. We'll definitely see if this kind of hybrid Aesol is going to work out for them. We got good items on Jinx too, so this is looking like a potential top 4, but with 21 HP, there's not a lot of leeway to make mistakes here.
What I would say is he did just kind of gut his 4 brawler frontline, but as you can see, 2-star Aurelion Soul, still good. Still makes the Jinx work. NextKnowMe, by the way, this is interesting. He's actually pivoted into a similar build to Fluffy. NextKnowMe has actually just ditched Vanguard Mystic and looks like he's going directly into Astro Sniper.
Whoa. Okay, so I actually love this. This is something that I've wanted, I think, players to do a little bit more often. It's kind of understanding where you are in the grand scheme of things, and now he's directly challenging. He's literally just like pulling up to it's like the weigh-in before a fight, right? Like it's literally what he's doing here in terms of standing up. Hey, if you're gonna run it, I can too. It's gonna be just a race to see who can manipulate the RNG to the best of their ability, get those units. We got blue buff on Teemo, but we've only got we still got a couple snipers that need to come through here for YouBetterKnowMe.
This is 6 Vanguards. This is actually 6 Vanguards, by the way. This is not something that you see every day. I'm wondering if he's doing that to try and deal with the 4 snipers from Fluffy, and he's doing it as a direct tech to try and beat Fluffy. I'm not sure, but this is actually just straight up 6 Vanguards.
6 Vanguards. Oh, 6 Vanguards did, I believe, get a top 4 in Cloud9 a little earlier this week. So we know that it's there. It's a good, again, per lobby type of counter. And you're seeing exactly how beefy they are. They are drinking their Sunny Delight. They have enough milk in their diet, and they're going to go ahead and survive through another round as Nomi is going to finally stabilize, spent all of his money to actually get there. Will have a tier 2 Soraka soon. That's definitely going to help those Vanguards stay alive. Good item selection on this carousel as well.
Yeah, a lot of really, really important items. I wonder what's going to be left for Fluffy and YouBetterKnowMe at the top end of the table. Like, I know it might seem like we're focusing on this storyline quite a lot, but it is kind of the storyline now. I think given the way that the lobby has panned out, given the way that the points were before coming into this, I think it'd be unfair not to keep track of where Fluffy and NextKnowMe are, because they are now almost certainly fighting directly for first place. Like, that's the way that this lobby feels. There would have to be some drastic shift in power level. There would have to be some drastic shift in HP values for that to change massively at this point. But what I would say is this a much closer lobby. There hasn't been anyone that's completely dominated. There is about 40 HP between first place and last place, and that is like 2 bad losses. And you could be swinging yourself into the bottom 8, you know?
The lobby in general have gotten slower as the day goes on, right? I think at this point in our first lobby, I think maybe even 3, maybe 4 people had already gotten eliminated before Kane. So it just, again, it goes to show how maybe we get a little bit more control going on. We're feeling a little bit more comfortable in our shoes. We've broken into the meta a little bit, and now we're making sure our decisions are going to be a lot more intentional and not kind of flying by the seat of our pants, because we've seen a variety of different things so far. We've definitely seen the core of that Dark Star, but we've seen Shredder, we've seen the snipers, we've seen a lot of Teemo over the last 2 lobbies, and SunnyLu will fall here. Fluffy will win once more. 9 HP remaining for SunnyLu. Did NextKnowMe win at that? No, he did not. The 6 Vanguards did fall. And the thing about, I think, the difference between Fluffy's comp versus Nomi's comp is I think it's easier to counter Nomi's comp than it is for Fluffy's comp. I think
Fluffy counters it. He's got the Infinity Edge Last Whisper combo. Like, it doesn't matter how much armor the 6 Vanguards give you, as Last Whisper's like shredding through a significant portion of it. Plus, you have the Teemo, and he's got blue buff Teemo giving him he's got like blue buff Teemo giving him the magic damage component for that particular composition. So if it were to go to a head-to-head, I'd put my money on Fluffy being sort of likely to win this one. Plus, he's got a Nico left. He's like got 1 Nico's left that he could.
Yeah, and again, when you have the options, especially at the late game, that's it's almost invaluable when it comes to these players and how they use and utilize their options. It's funny also seeing those Gnar changes. His base damage got really good in his Mega Gnar form, and we're actually seeing items getting built on him. We got the Battlecast earlier, we got the Rage Blade, which is going to help him ult a little bit faster as well. No one else really on this comp, I think, with that Rage Blade that could potentially get as much value outside of the Thresh to pull in some people, but even his bench units aren't that good. I like the idea, but now with the Morellos, that Teemo gets a lot stronger.
Oh yeah, that's a great pickup for NextKnowMe. That's really important. I'd love to check in on TheEnclase because he's now on a win streak with that two-star Aurelion Soul. This is a guy that if the stars align and let's say Fluffy and NextKnowMe get knocked out, which I think is going to be unlikely at this point, he still has a good opportunity to go for first. But even so, a good win here probably guarantees TheEnclase top 3. And that would be 2 weeks in a row that he'd hit top 3, right? So
Yep. Yep, and him and Nomi were the returning from last week, along with adrehh, who has had a little bit of a harder day today. But this lobby has been pretty nutty. Just in general, such different experiences per lobby. TheEnclase, like you said, does have an outside shot on that number 1, is going to be the only one running this Rebel comp right now. And when you're not going to be contested, you're going to be able to run as free as possible when it comes to this. And with the stacked ASOL, that tier 2 ASOL is going to be what makes or breaks TheEnclase's opportunities and chances moving forward. We do get that Rebel block into the corner. We got the Ezreal there for that utility. Should actually get a really nice EMP if he doesn't get baited by that Ash, but the Gnar should help him out with that. The EMP is going to get stopped up for now. So everyone actually versus TheEnclase got those ults off. And we actually got to see how important, we saw the nerfs just then of that Ezreal too against Fluffy. If that EMP comes out, we might actually be in a different position, but everyone got their ults off instead against Fluffy.
Yeah, also Jin just two-shot the Aurelion Soul. Like Jin just actually straight up two-shot the Aurelion Soul at the end of that fight as well. So like, just unfortunate Aurelion Soul wandered into the firing path of Jin because he just two-shot him.
Yep, and look at the lobby as well. 3 members getting eliminated at the same time, with SunnyLu finishing in 7th place and Nomi finishing in 6th place. It's going to be it for him, and now he's actually at risk of potentially falling out of the top 3, depending on how everyone else does it. That happened, what feels like out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Nomi gets taken down, so Fluffy has got to feel mighty good sitting on top of that leaderboard. But Excoundrel, what does this mean now that Nomi is out of the running?
Well, it probably means that Fluffy gets first. It definitely means that Nomi is going to have a hard time potentially holding on to the top 3, especially if we see TheEnclase continue to do well here. He might lose 2nd place. I think, I don't know, I can't tell for sure, but it might be that NextKnowMe's done enough to keep hold of that 3rd spot. But if TheEnclase does well, this is actually probably pretty good for NextKnowMe because it means there's not going to be anybody else contending for those top 3. But if I'm Fluffy, I'm really happy. I think unless I get knocked out in 4th, and even then I don't know if it's going to be enough, but unless I get knocked out in 4th and TheEnclase comes first, which I don't even think is possible with the amount of HP left on some of these players, Fluffy's probably won Fight Night. I think this is just given the way that this lobby is now set up, I think Fluffy is very likely going to be our Fight Night winner.
In my opinion, his biggest threat was taken down most likely by a rock, paper, scissors situation or a counter. Those 6 Vanguards, we talked about it being a top 4 type of comp, but in this situation, I think he needed to go up against Fluffy, and this Jin is ripping through the Star Guardians in the back line, but so is their Jin. Is adrehh gonna take down Fluffy? adrehh playing spoiler right now as TheEnclase gets taken down. It's gonna be Magarky who potentially can sneak into the top 3 now. I believe he was there in the running. adrehh top 1 on fire, spoiler extraordinaire sitting at the top, and Fluffy and Magarky in 2nd and 3rd place. If you were to ask me how this lobby was going to go, this was not how I expected it to be, but I'm glad we're here anyway. Is TheEnclase now sitting at 26 HP. He already has gotten his points, so that means that Fluffy sitting at 24, I think with this he's secured. He's secured. He's guaranteed. He is our winner of a Fight Night, but who wants the bragging rights for this lobby? I know he does. Will he be able to get it, or will it belong to Magarky or adrehh instead?
It's going to be close. I haven't really had a chance to keep an eye on Magarky, but he's playing Chrono Ash. Not even joking. He's playing Chrono Ash and he's top 4. He has got a 3-star Ash. Ash did get buffed pretty significantly on the last patch, so Chrono Ash could genuinely be a thing. But he's actually playing 6 Chrono Ash. This to me is insane. Like, this is a comp that I've always wanted to see work because it just makes me laugh every time I see it. But he's actually playing Chrono Ash.
Unironically, whoa! Jesus, that Ash arrow absolutely deleted them. Unfortunately, it's not going to be
Oh.
enough as adrehh is going to be able to knock him out. But our 6th Chrono got 3rd. Oh, actually, no, it did get 3rd place, but it looks like Magarky also got eliminated there, and adrehh is going to be the lobby winner. I'm not 100% sure who our 2nd and 3rd place will be, but it's going to be close. Congratulations, Fluffy. I'm sure we're going to get the interview in a little bit later, but Chrono Ash, 6 Blade Master, Shredder, Darkstar, we got everything under the sun today, and I'm just happy to be here with you, Excoundrel. That was a blast, and honestly, if I'm being completely real with everyone at home, so much better than last week.
I think just obviously there is still units that are strong. I think it's quite clear that Jhin, very powerful. I think it's clear that Shaco still, in a good spot. But yeah, it was much more diverse, much more healthy. We saw a lot of more ingenuity and sort of and theory crafting when it came to some of the builds, like that 4 sniper build, the 6 Battlecast. Chrono Ash getting top 3, like genuinely and unironically seeing a Chrono Ash build get top 3, really fun. I've had a good day. It's made me feel a lot happier and healthier about TFT. Hey,
hell yeah! All right, let's see those scores. We know Fluffy's on top, and YouBetterKnowMe sneaks in because Magarky and adrehh play spoiler in that lobby. YouBetterKnowMe sneaks in 3rd place on Clace on 26 points, and Fluffy all of a sudden develops a huge lead, 32 points. I believe the only one to top 4 in every lobby. That type of consistency is going to bring you a 1st place.
Not even top 4, like top 3. He like not even just top 4. He top 3'd in every lobby. Like that's even more consistent. Like actually the beacon of consistency is Fluffy.
At this point, it's like definition of word Fluffy's picture in the dictionary. So before we get this interview set up, I'm sure we're getting him in here soon. Of course, we're going to talk about Battlecast. Don't you worry, folks at home. But I just kind of want to laud Fluffy a little bit more. He wasn't here last week, comes in, takes, honestly, that Knowme Fluffy matchup for that last lobby, even though it didn't kind of end the way we expected, it was still an exhilarating moment, at least for me in terms of casting TFT. But man, Fluffy, to be able to, I think, play 3 different comps in 4 lobbies and top 3 on all 4 of them, that's crazy.
But also it's kind of a statement. There were a lot of good players in Fight Night, a lot of really, really high skilled players. Fluffy has consistently been kind of seen as one of the top players in Europe. He's been holding rank 1. A lot of people may have thought that he just held rank 1 on last patch because he was a Rebel player and Rebels were really good, and Fluffy was kind of known at being the Rebel guy. So this is more of a statement from Fluffy as well to say, no, I don't even need to play Jinx. Don't even need to play Rebels. I'm still incredibly good at the game, and that is what kind of made me really happy to see.
All right, so we have Fluffy on the line. First off, congratulations, coming back with a vengeance.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right,
Feels good,
Excoundrel, why don't you lead us out?
Right. I'm a big fan of Fluffy. He knows that. He's given me some coaching. But what I'd say is we were talking about this. Obviously, you held rank 1, top 5 ranks on European server for quite some time. A lot of people probably looked at it and thought, is that because Fluffy's just really bloody good at Rebels because you were kind of known as the Rebel guy? Does it feel good to come into a competitive environment, not play Jinx once, and still come out as the best player in the lobby?
I wanted to play Jinx like as much as I can, but didn't hit the items or the units for it. So
Sure.
I potentially could have played it one game, but then I hit Cog 2 in one shop, and I wanted to play like Ziggs carry, and then I ended up going Battlecast. His gunmay told me, send Shiv Cog, it's lit, trust, and then I just went for it. So yeah.
Oh,
That's
Gunmay.
Gunmay's fault. Yep.
Thanks, Gunmay. We really appreciate it. So Gunmay is going to be the reason why I lose a couple hundred LP after this cast. Appreciate it.
I'm not sure Battlecast is good or anything. I think that lobby in general was just pretty weak, and I took advantage of it with an early Cog Shiv. So cool. I almost bled out though, but managed to stabilize and get the first.
Yeah, there was you lost like 40 HP in 3 rounds at one point.
I didn't hit my upgrades, so I was hitting with like 6 pairs or something, and then we got a lucky Battlecast pat and hit like 2 units in one shop, so I managed to stabilize. And huge. I think that's what happened. I can't remember for sure, but
I think what I said about Battlecast is like one of those comps that you have to hit Cog too early, and you have to have like the good items, otherwise it's just not worth
for sure.
Right?
It seems pretty troll if you're trying to force it, like without items. I feel like red buff and Shiv are extremely important for that to even like work for a top 4. I could be wrong though. I could be completely wrong. I haven't played Battlecast more than like 4 times, so I could definitely be wrong. I don't see it do well. I don't see it do well ever, so that's probably why.
I think that's just like goes to show how like y'all are so good at like kind of identifying just the kind of game state and seeing, oh, actually Battlecast could potentially work here. I got my cog. Let's kind of commit to see how long we go. And then you get that spat item last, put it on the Gnar. Battlecast Gnar is like my new favorite thing now. But outside of the Battlecast, I know, right? Outside of the Battlecast, in terms of everything else, we actually saw, you know, some consistency in terms of team comps in her lobby, but the top ones were pretty variable. We got Shredder. You were running that quad sniper a couple times.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
An unironic,
that was
like Chrono Ash.
I was just trying to play something strong, and it ended up winning, so I kept with it instead of swapping into something that I thought was better. And then eventually, I just fizzled out and died in second or third or something.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I was expecting you to go cybers because you had the array.
Yeah, I wanted to, but I never hit gloves, so.
I was like, he's gonna sell the vein, right? He's gonna sell the vein, find another vein, transfer the items to Irelia. Like that's what I was thinking. And then you ended up just going 4 snipers. I was like, okay, I mean this works, I guess. I actually got a question because you were talking about Jinx. If you were to play Jinx in this meta, because I still think Jinx is good. I think people are kind of
no, she's awful. Don't play her. Absolutely don't play her. It's really bad. Don't touch the unit.
Fluffy's telling everybody this, so they don't play Jinx, and you can continue.
No, just bad.
Don't play.
But if okay, let's hypothetically say Jinx wasn't bad. Wink, wink.
Okay.
How would you play Jinx in this meta?
I wouldn't, but if I would play her like last set, pretty much.
Okay.
Or last patch. I think she's just really strong. The units are still really strong. You play the same kind of comp basically. As far as I know, I was theory crafted with just adding Jarvan in there.
Yeah.
But not really sure how to with that.
I was theory crafting because I think Karma is like hidden broken. I was thinking of playing, you know, the old 2 blasters, 2 mystics, 4 brawlers comp. I was wondering whether you could play the Karma, the 2-star Karma alongside the Jinx and add in the Soraka.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
But I haven't had time to test it yet.
I feel like the brawlers just die really easily to Jhin and like Shaco and stuff. They get destroyed. Like Jhin with the last game we played now, I had Last Whisper IE Jhin and he crit for 4,000 on a brawler. So like, I don't feel like the HP is gonna matter at all.
No, that's true.
So I'm pretty sure brawlers are really bad after like stage 4, 3. Like before, I thought they were really bad before or after stage 5, but now it's like stage 4.5, and they're unplayable.
Yeah, it's too much burst damage.
Yeah,
later on in the game, deleting that HP. So in terms of just the meta in general, I mean, do you think we kind of saw such variety because it's just a new patch? Or are there things that you think we're gonna focus in on and we turn into kind of like the Jinx Rebel Brawler versus like the Sorcerer Riven like last time?
It's probably gonna stay Darkstar heavy for a while until Jarvan is hit or people figure out how to play against it consistently. But Jarvan is a little bit too strong, and so is Darkstar. Otherwise, the meta is in a really good place. I feel like.
Cool.
I'm much happier. I'm much happier playing right now than I was about a week ago. So, I totally. What do you think about Syndra, by the way? Like, obviously, with the Syndra nerf that happened in the hotfix last night, do you think she's still playable? Because
she's really good.
Almost no one picked her up this entire tournament. Like,
I noticed
saw
that.
one Syndra player, and I was really confused. I was like, surely, like, I still think she's
a
good.
lot of it on ladder, so she's definitely good. Not sure why.
Yeah.
I think just the preference of the players. Like you saw Magarky, for example, he went Shredder every game. I think, like almost every game, forced it, and then Sunny was limit testing apparently. So, and then what else? Oh, adrehhh was like forcing Shaco no matter what every game. So I feel like a lot of people here were just forcing one comp they thought were good. And
I was vibing with Sunny, dude. I was watching his point of view, and I was like, I feel you, mate. I feel you.
We've all sat in that chair, man.
It happens.
Yeah, we've all sat in that chair, looked at that screen.
He'll bounce back and do really well another week.
Yeah,
for sure. He's a great player.
Well, is there anyone that you kind of want to hype up? Like, you're obviously the lobby winner this time around, but we've got a couple new names. Is there someone that you want to, like, in terms of someone that you want us to look at? Like, I feel like Sphinx was kind of that player for NA, or just like in general, maybe this lobby, maybe just in general. Is there anyone that you kind of want to shout out in terms of maybe the community needs to know, something that's maybe helped you out?
Definitely SunnyLu and gunmay for sure. Those are like the people I talk to and work with the most in terms of TFT. So they're both really good players, and gunmay's popping off on ladder right now. He's
Yeah, I
usually
love
just a
gunmay.
tournament player, but he was top 10 for a little bit ago. So like he's popping off. I think he might do really well this set, and hopefully they both make it to Worlds or the qualifiers and can show that.
Cool.
So,
All right. Well, that's it for me.
Team
Excoundrel, what
IKEA.
about you?
Yeah, I just said Fluffy. Obviously, you're gonna
Yeah.
have a smaller Swedish TFT gang. Fluffy, is there anything that you want to say? Like, where can people find you on socials, on Twitch, that kind of stuff?
Check out my stream and Twitter's FluffyHS or Fluffy_HS on Twitter.
Would recommend. I watch Fluffy all the time, so 100% recommend.
Cool.
All right, same. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see
Thank you
you
for
next
having me.
week for you to defend your title. And welcome back to Fight Night Rising, by
See
the
you
way.
then.
Yeah, see you
All right.
around.
Peace out.
So, Excoundrel, some wise words from Fluffy there, and it just kind of seems like everyone was just doing their best and putting everyone on like the same battlefield and saying, you know what, I'm going to force Shaco, I'm going to do this. And I think because of that, we got to learn a lot about this meta. So to kind of close things out, what is the thing that you're taking away from this experience today?
I kind of echo Fluffy. Like, it's obviously Darkstars are strong, but like it's not the only thing that dominates the meta. I think there are lots of comps that can do well. Shredder is up there. We're seeing a lot of different sniper compositions come out. 6 Battlecast in the right scenario can work. So I just think, just go and enjoy the meta. Just hopefully Jarvan gets slightly nerfed, and then we'll be in a great spot.
yeah. Literally, there have been other points where it's like, you got to do this, this, and this. And I think I agree. We deal with Jarvan, and I think we deal with a lot in terms of what's bad, because I had a great time. What we saw today was absolutely wonderful, from the 1v1 of Nomi and Fluffy in that last lobby to how close it was throughout the rest. And adrehhh playing spoiler at the end there, actually eliminating Nomi. They were talking about it in chat, and he was the reason why Nomi almost misses out on that top 3. But Nomi will be back for a 3rd week in a row, along with Fluffy and TheEnclase, who's back for a 2nd week themselves. So really good job to them. I loved casting it with you, Excoundrel. Any final words from you? Where can we find you online?
Excoundrel on everything. There you go.
Hell yeah. And you can find me at Bupasaurus Rex on Twitter. And that's going to be it for today. But before we go, we got to thank Juked.gg. If you want to find all of these streams for every fight night for anything on giantslayer, go to juke.gg. It's where esports lives. I know Excoundrel was using it today. I use it for when I need some background noise. It's when I find out Games Done Quick is on, or some other types of tournaments are on. It's definitely kind of an all-in-one resource when it comes to esports. But that is going to be it for us today. We're going to see you next week again for Fight Night Rising EU edition. We'll see you then.